Welcome back to HPP, the podcast that covers college basketball in the NBA draft inside and out. I am Rich Harris, and thank you for joining us again. We have a full house again today. I am joined, as always, by Maverick Swenson, Booney, and Daquan Louallen, who we call Doc, and we call Booney. So welcome back, gentlemen. How is life? What's new? Booney has an interesting background. It looks like he's in he looks like he's in Peyton Manning's basement, basically. and Doc looks like he's, I don't know. It kind of looks like he's at a stadium, but not a stadium, an arena, excuse me. But anyway, guys, how you doing?
Good. A lot of college hoops, a lot of exciting games. Doing well.
Oh my God, well, there are so many games. We'll get into that later. We're going to start off with the NBA. So hopefully this week with the Mavericks or Luka Doncic will not come up, though. Maverick, I'm going to let you start off our NBA segment by telling Doc and Booney what we discovered about win shares and predicting the MVP winner.
So we looked it up a little bit afterwards, and we talked about it a little bit on the show. But win shares was a very important statistic when looking at the MVP winners. And I believe whenever I was looking at the win share leaders, 7 out of the last 10 MVPs were also the leader in win shares.
I thought you told me 8.
I believe it's 7. I think it's 7.
So you lied to me.
No, I don't think it was either 7 or 8. I can't remember, but it was a high number. And
okay.
currently, number 1 is still Jokic. It's still Jokic. But number two is our boy Luka. And we're talking about we can't get it to Jokic 3 times in a row. Guess who's next?
Wait. I gotta stop you right there because we're not getting into this again. At least not this week. All right. So since we last talked, I looked over the NBA standings, which have changed obviously since last week. And so instead of specifically talking about the Clippers, Hawks, and Raptors like we said we would, I thought we'd talk about who seems to be the biggest disappointment and most in trouble, and maybe a couple surprise teams as well. So in the East, we're going to start with you, Doc. The Raptors are currently, this is in the Eastern standings, they're 11th. The Hawks are 9th. And so between those two disappointing teams, who do you think's in the most trouble and why? And there's one or both of them, do you think maybe they can turn it around and actually have an impact in the playoffs?
Well, before we get to those two teams, I think it's another team that's another team that's a little rocky, and that's the Miami Heat. Okay.
Yeah.
They 7 right now, but games-wise, they go on 2-game losing streak. They could be 11. Toronto could be 7. So the right now is all close. For me, I feel like the Heat right now the most disappointment team because of where they was at. There was one shot. There was a Jimmy Butler 3 away from going to the finals. Now season is like they lost their identity. Not playing Duncan Robinson no more. We don't really know who the number 2 option is because we saw what happened to Tyler Hero in the playoffs. He wouldn't go. So I think what happened is now Jimmy Butler is being asked to lead the team in assists, points, and rebounds. That's not the type of game. That's not the type of player he is. So since that is going on, Miami Heat, I think, is the most in trouble. And I think they need to make a trade before the deadline. I think the perfect person they should go after is Russell Westbrook. I think they should trade Kyle Lowry, trade Duncan Robinson, and go get Russell Westbrook. I feel like Russell Westbrook will fit their team because not only does Miami have a culture, they could Jimmy Butler can be the enforcer to tell Westbrook, hey, dude, you're wilding out. You're not doing this. This is the game plan we're going to do. This is how we're going to run. And they need Westbrook's offense and his playmaking ability so they could take the ball out of Jimmy Butler's hands. Because Jimmy Butler's not LeBron James. He shouldn't be leading the team in assists and points and rebound. He shouldn't be doing all of that. He should just worry about making clutch baskets. Jimmy Butler's getting old and score timely. He shouldn't be dependent on scoring 40 points in the playoffs. So I think Westbrook would definitely fit the team. I think they're the most in trouble right now. Anybody got any disagreements with what I said before I go to the next team?
Problem with Westbrook is that salary. I don't know who wants to carry that salary.
Well, with Lowry and Robinson, that would probably balance it out, no?
Yeah, it would match it.
Yeah, it would balance. And plus, you want to win the championship, Miami Heat goals. You're not trying to keep Westbrook for long. So Westbrook becomes free agent at the end of this year. You want to win the championship. I think Westbrook. You're not going to win the championship with Kyle Lowry. Okay, let's be honest. He always been more of like a thicker size point guard. You know, he's getting old. He's kind of washed. Like he's not. He doesn't fit the 18 per se. He needs to be more on a team like the Lakers, where he doesn't just get some charges, bring defense to that team, and bring leadership. I think that's what the Lakers need, and also bring Dr. Robinson. I feel like Westbrook for Miami, and I feel like the Lakers would definitely enjoy having Kyle Lowry and Dr. Robinson. One guy is a shooter. What the Lakers need is a legit shooter. They have zero, and they need leadership from Kyle Lowry and his defensive mentality of drawing charges. And I feel like that trade works for both teams. So I feel like that should happen during the deadline.
And the Lakers could use Lowry in short spurts where the Heat really can't afford to do that, but yet Lowry at 34 or 35 years old is really not up to the task anymore. Kyle Lowry is one of my favorite all-time NBA players, but he's just, he's past his prime, way past his prime, and he played so physically, he's all beat up. At least in my opinion, he just doesn't have much left in the tank. So I think that's a good idea. I don't know if the Lakers would go for it, but I think it's a good idea for the Heat. Now, I'm going to throw this over to you, Mav. Same question, and we're going to throw in Doc's Heat. So among the Heat, Hawks, and Raptors, who's in the most trouble, and who do you think can turn it around?
I think Doc made some good points about the Heat. I don't think that Westbrook is the ideal fit. I've seen Westbrook play with players that can't shoot, and you have Jimmy Butler, who's not a shooter whatsoever, especially in spot-up situations, and you also have Bam, who is a slasher and a roller to the rim. I'm not sure how Westbrook fits with that. I do agree, though, a point guard would dramatically help the Heat, but they're not my most disappointing. I expected them to be around that 6 to 9 range, and I think they're still going to finish there. My biggest disappointment by far is the Hawks. I predicted that they would be the 2nd seed. I thought that they filled every need with that DeJounte Murray deal whenever they brought in a secondary ball handler. They brought in a perimeter defender who could really cover up Trey's flaws. But on paper, it doesn't really get much better of a fit than Trey, DeJounte, DeAndre Hunter, John Collins, and Capella. That starting 5 on paper is probably a top 5 starting 5. Now, you see what's happening with the coaching. You see what's happening with the front office. You see what's happening with the Trey Young situation and his and then also the John Collins situation. He's been in the trade discussions for, it seems like, ever since he got into the league.
Yeah.
That team should be so much better than what it actually is. You want to talk about a team that, like the Miami Heat last year, was one shot away from the finals. The Atlanta Hawks, with a sophomore Trey Young, were in the Eastern Conference Finals battling out with the eventual champion Milwaukee Bucks. They should be farther along, both as a team and individually, than they are now. And I think that's to blame with the coaching staff. Nate McMillan has never been an offensive genius, but I figured he would have some sort of diversity rather than just a simple pick and roll with DeJounte Murray and John Collins and Trey Young and Clint Capella. But Nate McMillan's defense has always been great. Looking back even on the Pacer days with the Victor Oladipo, Domantas Sabonis, and Miles Turner, I haven't seen anywhere near that. He has not been able to hide Trey Young, and I feel like the next step for that organization is you either need to have a complete revamp. Collins, Capella, even Hunter need to go. Keep Murray and Trey Young, or the front office and coaching staff all need to completely change and go with a different emphasis on both ends of the floor.
Say something about the Hawks. The reason that I won't say the most disappointment, because I feel like they are where they're supposed to be at. When Nate McMillan came halfway, they wasn't in the playoffs. And when he came, they went on a win streak that's 2021 year, and they wound up making the playoffs with 4th seed. The Knicks was 5th. I think both those teams was fool's gold. So they beat the Knicks. Then they put the Sixers. Sixers should have beat them. Sixers a better team. Sixers collapsed. They played Milwaukee Bucks. Well, they lost in 6, but Trae Young got injured, but so did Giannis. The next year, they was AC, and they lost first round. They got swept. I just don't think Trae Young is a star. He needs somebody better than him on the team for that team to really be good. That's what the DeJounte Murray thing. I never thought. I never really looked too much into it because I feel like you need somebody better than Trae Young to put up for that team to go far because he doesn't play defense. He just shoots so. And this year he's been bad from 3. He shoots poorly every game from field goal and 3. I don't really blame the coach. I just blame Trae Young. I feel like he's not the superstar that we think he is.
Before we leave the topic, neither of you guys commented on the Raptors. And to me, I thought the Hawks would be better. The Heat are about where I thought they would be. But I certainly didn't think the Raptors would be out of the playoff picture, having not seen them much since the beginning of the season. And I know they really haven't played well. They weren't even playing well then. But what exactly is going wrong with it? Just a lack of offense, or what? What do you think's the Raptors' main problem this year?
For the Raptors, I just think Scotty Barnes never developed into the next level of star. So I think now that they thought he was going to be past Siakam's still the best, and kind of OG been playing better than this year also. So I think it's Scotty Barnes. He didn't exit into that next level.
What do you think, Mav?
Yeah, I think it's a lack of team chemistry. It seems like I remember seeing a video on Twitter recently with Scotty Barnes and Thaddeus Young kind of going at it in shoot around before a game. And that's never really happened before with Toronto. I think this whole Fred VanVleet contract negotiation and trade stuff, I think that's really impacted the team, especially because he won the championship with them. He's one of the most respected members of that Toronto team. That probably plays a pretty big factor as well. And overall, they just kind of have they have a lack of depth all around. They don't really have a true big man that you can play consistent minutes. Right now, they're still rocking with Pascal at the 5. I don't think he's a natural 5. I think he's a natural 4. But he can still play the 5. I just don't think that should be the go-to. And I mean, Doc kind of really hit it on the money here with Scotty Barnes. We didn't really expect him to go to all-star level or superstar, but we expected him to make some sort of jump, especially on the offensive end. I haven't seen anything. I've actually seen a little bit of regression on the offensive end. I don't think that he has any sort of shot creation at all. An overall lack of creativity on the perimeter is really going to hold him back. He could be a fantastic player, a fantastic two-way player, especially. But he needs to work on that creation on the offensive end, whether it's a little post face-up game or the ability to make a 1-2 dribble 3. He needs something in order to get to that next level. But right now, he's not there.
Isn't it funny how and sometimes this goes on for their whole careers. The things that we pick on a prospect about often affects them pretty much the first couple of years. In Scotty's was his offense.
Yep.
And in some guys, they never break it. They never break it. They just they are what they are. And then you have guys like Maxey, who's like way better in the NBA than he was, at Kentucky. So it's crazy. One more question I got for you in the East, guys. The Knicks, 6th right now overall. Is that going to last? Doc?
It's the Knicks. Who knows? It's crazy. Jalen Brunson is in it's a new award called Clutch Player of the Year. Jalen Brunson's number 5 on that list. So, hey, maybe if Jalen Brunson stay clutch.
Yeah. He's one of my favorite players in the league. It reminds me of Lowry, that kind of player. What do you think, Mav? The Knicks, maybe, no, yes?
They have 3 guys averaging over 20 a game. I mean, they put together a pretty impressive year so far. I don't think they can just stay at like that 6th seed or get any higher, but I do think they are going to make the playoffs this year.
All right, cool. All right, let's move on to the West and talk about the three big disappointments there. Clippers and Warriors, who were pretty much everybody's favorite to win it all, and the Suns, who a lot of people thought also could win it all. All three considered championship contenders. Who do we think? And I think the best of the bunch right now is the Clippers in sixth. Or they're one game above 500. I think the Warriors are one game below 500. I think the Suns are 3 games below 500. They're currently the 12th seed or 12th in the West. Who do we think has the best chance of digging out of this hole? And are any of these teams, can we just write them off right now?
For me, Maverick's not going to like this because I see a Luka Doncic jersey in the back. I didn't know you were a big fan. But so right now, Dallas is 5th, right? I'm going to get to my point. The Clippers, the Warriors, Minnesota Timberwolves, and the Phoenix Suns all had their best player injured for a long amount of time. So their records is bad because Steph Curry was hurt, Kawhi/PG was hurt, Karl Towns is basically out. I don't know if he's out for the season, but he's been out for a long time. And Phoenix has been out with Devin Booker. If these guys had their superstars, these teams, those 4 teams would be over the Mavericks. The Mavericks would be out the playoffs. So is Luka really the MVP? But that's sidetracking. My thing is
Doc, we went over this last week. Dorian Finney-Smith, Josh Green, Maxi Kleber, they have no depth. They're also hurt.
Frank Ntilikina playing at the 4.
We have Frank Ntilikina at the 4, Doc.
Listen, guys, he's mentioning role players. I mentioned stars. Let's again, Steph Curry, Louallen, and Paul George, Cat, and Devin Booker. If these stars was what they teams, these guys missed more than 2 months, and they was there with their teams. Mavericks would even be in the playoffs. Mavericks is 5th seed with all these stars being out. They Mavericks would be 9th seed. So listen, my only thing is this. These teams are missing their stars. When they get their stars back during All-Star break, they might turn around. Last year, the Boston Celtics was 9th seed around this time. They went from 9th seed all the way to number 1. Anything can happen once you get healthy. That's all I have to say.
Doc. You keep you saying that they're missing their stars and they'd be all over the Mavs, right? The Mavs, I'm going to tell you right now. I'm going to tell you the Mavs rotation. I have it memorized, all right? Luka plays the entire first quarter. He sits out 4 minutes in the second quarter, and he plays the rest of the second quarter. He then plays the rest of the game. All right. Let me tell you some of the rotation players that come in. All right. Christian Wood plays around 28 minutes a night. All right. You can say that's a pretty good player, right? He is the Andre Drummond of scoring. None of his points matter. I'm sorry, I have to say it. Number 2, Spencer Dinwiddie. He is ineffective whenever Luka's in the game because Luka commands the ball every time for rightful reasons. For a rightful reason. No one can make a better play than Luka Doncic on the Mavericks. All right, let's go with everyone else. Currently, Theo Pinson is the first guy off the bench, Doc. Theo Pinson!
It's not my fault. Luka won.
But you're saying, Doc, if they had their guys, they'd be all over the Mavericks. Is it not even more impressive that Luka is the 5th seed with Theo Pinson, Frank Ntilikina, and JaVale McGee?
JaVale McGee was a great part of that Lakers offense back in 2020 during the bubble.
2020. You're not the same player, Doc.
Listen,
you know it.
We're not about to compare role players or bench players to stars being out. I'm sorry. These stars was there. Let's think about it. Minnesota is better than the Mavericks, yes?
No. They were horrible. They've been horrible all year.
They're one game under 500.
Because Cat is out. They
were horrible with Cat at the 4.
No, they wasn't.
Get exposed.
It wasn't.
Doc, they would get exposed defensively every game because Cat can't defend anywhere near a 4. He has to stay inside the paint. He's not aware enough on defense. I think they've actually been better with Anthony Edwards as the primary ball and shot creator rather than sharing it with Cat. In my opinion, the Cat situation was extremely beneficial for Minnesota's future. I think Cat's expendable. Now, the Phoenix Suns, the Phoenix Suns were even disappointing with Devin Booker and still in. They were
the top 3 team in the West.
And then they fell off a cliff, Doc. After
because of Devin Booker injury.
With Devin Booker, they still fell off a cliff, and then they came into the 8th seed.
No, they did not.
Yes, they did. They started out high, and then Devin Booker got hurt. All of a sudden, they fell off a cliff.
Yes, when Devin Booker got hurt.
No, before Devin Booker got hurt.
No.
And then, okay. And then what are you going to say about the Clippers? What are you going to say about the Clippers?
The Clippers been injured their whole lives. Yes, but listen, about when Kawhi and Paul George is there, they win. Look at their record when they both play. That's all I gotta say. I'm sorry about the Mavericks. I know you love the Mavericks so much. They really are big. I see a Luka. That's jersey signed, by the way.
Yeah, he signed it for me. All right, yeah.
Listen, now I see why you love him so much. Okay?
No. Okay, hold on, Doc. No, this isn't bias. Okay, this is. I see flaws in teams. I point them out. I see the flaws in the Mavs. I point them out. I'm saying that it's more impressive than anything that Luka has a 5th seed with the team that he has currently. That Mavs team is so bad, Doc. They are so terrible.
Because Luka wants his teams to be bad for you to go nuts.
Luka wants his teams to be bad, Doc?
He can't play with other good players. KP went to Washington, looks like New York KP. Why he don't look like that?
Whoa, hold on.
No. Can I get a word in here, edgewise? When Luka, before he came to the NBA, played for Real Madrid, he played a supporting role. He wasn't ball dominant. He played a supporting role, and they won the Spanish League. They won Euro League. He knows how to be a good teammate.
Well, he hasn't did that in American League and the NBA where it matters. I don't care what Ricky Rubio and everybody did overseas. Is what you do in the
What
NBA.
are you talking about, Doc?
What you do
what players?
Manu Ginobili, the best player in Argentina. I don't care what you do. You got to be the best in the NBA.
What is going on, Doc? What does that mean?
Hey, Luka is a ball hog centric. He can't get along with no other stars. Get him out, please.
What is going on, Doc? Okay, what players are we looking at that is great that Luka's played with so far?
KP
KP
good.
KP good? What? Hold on. We're talking about the same KP who was completely irrelevant in the Clippers in that 2021 playoff matchup. He couldn't do anything. Do you know who was guarding KP, Doc? Do you know? It was a mixture between Patrick Beverley and Kawhi Leonard. He could not make a single post move or single post shot the entire game. That entire series was pick and roll between Boban and Luka. The next year after that, he was continuously hurt. No rhythm. He just kept getting hurt.
Maverick, can I ask you a question?
Of course.
When KP and Jalen Brunson left Mavericks, did they play way better than what they did on the Mavericks?
Okay, hold on. Let me do the JB first. We all saw that JB was an all-star caliber player in Dallas. Now, he was playing a secondary role on the Mavs. Absolutely. He was also playing with Spencer Dinwiddie, and he was still incredibly efficient. We all saw that in that Jazz series whenever he was the primary ball handler. That was great. He was still, of course, playing behind Luka, who is a better NBA player, which rightfully so. The KP thing, okay? KP was continuously hurt, Doc. It was unbelievably annoying as someone who watches the Mavs he would play half the games. Once the playoffs came around, there's no chemistry. You and I both know, as someone who watches the NBA, chemistry is probably the most important thing to playoff success, because if someone does go down, if someone's not playing well, you need to have team chemistry in order to win those games. Dallas did not have that with KP. That is why he struggled. And I don't even think he's playing that well this year. I think he's just putting up empty numbers. I mean, he's just putting up empty numbers. Washington's not doing anything. Bradley Beal he's not contributing much anymore. He needs to get out, by the way. We haven't even talked about that. But that's it. We were supposed to limit to 3 teams, but now you got to talk about the Mavs.
Okay.
So what team is the most disappointed in the West to you, Maverick?
Well, go ahead. I got another question. I got 2 questions for both of you. We got 2 minutes, so.
Okay. Just say your most disappointed team.
Well, no, you can answer that, Maverick. Just give him a quick answer.
Probably, all 3 are pretty disappointing. I said the Warriors would be the 7th seed. Got that right. I would say probably the Clippers. Yeah. They just don't. And I even brought that up with Law Murray, too. Too many mouths to feed, not enough ball.
All right.
So now I want to ask you both. We got 2 minutes. Of the Clippers, Warriors, Suns, are any of them still a championship contender, and which ones?
Clippers.
Maverick?
On paper, of course you can say the Clippers. I don't think they mesh well. I think I think to the Warriors, probably with their pedigree, I have to go the Warriors. And since we're bringing up the Mavs, I'm still believing. I think the Mavs are still.
Mavs aren't on this list.
I'm just saying we brought them up. We might as well bring them up again.
All right, second question. The Kings are currently 4th in the West, and I don't think anybody here predicted that. With the Kings, have they finally figured it out? Are they going to be a top 6 playoff seed and not be in the play-in games?
They could finish top 6. Will they lose first round? Yes. It doesn't matter where they finish; they're gonna lose first round. So I think the West, a lot of those teams, every team in the West could beat each other. So even if the Denver Nuggets is number 1 seed, if they want to play in Golden State in the first round, I feel like Golden State could beat them. I feel like all those, like the way how the playoffs is right now, every team in the West could all beat each other up based off experience, based off of injuries. They all even in the West, honestly. They all even, except for the Mavericks.
Quick answer. Yes or no, Mav? I just need a yes or no.
No, they're not a 6 seed. You just told me that the West wasn't competitive last show. So why are they now super competitive now?
I'm saying they all mid. They all mid.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna have security take Maverick away. If you would have texted mid to me, by the way, I would have been like mid what? Midwife? Mid what? Anyway, Doc, we want to say goodbye. We always enjoy your segment or our NBA segment now that you've joined the show. Next week, I'm going to let you pick the topics, and hopefully, well, you know what? It didn't matter. If you look at the script right now, there's not one word that says Dallas or one word that says Luka or one word that says Mavericks. And still, somehow, we ended up taking half the segment talking about that.
Yeah, that's what happens sometimes in sports debates. You know, Skip and Shannon, every time they talk about NFL, LeBron name comes up somehow, right? So.
All righty, Doc. Thanks for being with us.
All right, Doc. Till next week. Till next week.
See ya.
All righty. So now it's time to move on to college. Booney, I think you got about 3 words in on that last segment.
It was good 3 words, though.
Yeah. Most definitely. So college action is really heating up. There were so many games that went down to the wire, were filled with energy. So was there any particular game this week that stands out in your mind that was like just totally awesome?
Let me think. I did see a number of games this weekend. I'm just looking back at the weekend just to see if anything jogs a memory of the fog. That was a lot. Oh, you know what was a great game was Michigan State and Purdue. It was incredibly good.
62-61, I believe.
64-63.
Okay.
What was interesting about that game, Edey had 32, but Izzo chose not to double Edey and played him straight up. And he attempted, I believe it was 23 or 24 shots in that game. One of them, 13 of 26 from the floor for being single teamed. So that was something interesting that hasn't been done to Edey all year. I thought he would have a bit bigger game. I thought the 50% and the 13 of 26 wasn't the most impressive, and Michigan State almost stole it. I thought Izzo's game plan was different, and it almost worked. It went down to the wire. Edey scored at a shot with, I believe, about 1.5 seconds left to take the 1-point lead, and it held on.
And that was Michigan State was without Malik Hall, correct? Their best overall defender.
Correct.
Yeah, and
Walker had a big game, had 30 in that, 12 to 23, and he had a huge game.
Right.
We're thinking a lot alike. We're thinking a lot alike already, Booney. I also had Purdue and Michigan State. I also had that game because
Yeah.
I mean the Edie thing, but I thought that Purdue just got outcoached just entirely. I thought that Purdue's offense looked pretty poor. They missed a lot of shots. I remember the second half, about 6 minutes left. I'm not sure if you remember this, Booney. Purdue player had an open lane. I think it was a 3-on-1, but it was a transition. Completely blew the layup, wide open.
Yeah.
It was. I mean, I felt like that Purdue, they almost got in their own head at some points with some of their offense and made it a little bit more complicated than it needed to be. And I think Edie did too. I don't think Edie had a very good game either. I mean, I think the single cover was a great call. I mean, he didn't really hardly take advantage of it.
I agree with you. His numbers look great. When you look at the box score, it's on
Absolutely.
31 and 17. But if you actually watch that game,
Yes,
I was like, there's something there. He had a hard time. He had a real hard time. And it really emphasized the fact that Edie's going to have a hard time scoring if he does not catch the ball in deep in the paint.
Yes.
6-7 feet away. I don't know if he was probably 30%, but of course he gets the ball tight, he's going to finish. So that was interesting.
Yeah.
As far as what Izzo did. Yeah.
Purdue got very lucky at the very end that Edie caught it with like 5 seconds from the 5 feet from the paint, 5 feet from the rim, because if it would have gone any other way, I think Michigan State would have stole this one.
Agree.
Another thing I noticed in previous Purdue games is, those freshmen, Braden Smith and Lawyer, they are at times starting to show their inexperience. And, neither of them were because I don't think anyone expected them to play as well as they have. And I don't think, ideally, if they were on pretty much any other team, well, not any other team, but on a lot of teams, they would be role players right now. I'm not knocking the kid. I mean, the kids have really played great, but it really scares you when you think about Final Four, about two not so highly regarded prospects, freshmen who don't have a lot of physical things going for them. And I mean, you guys might differ with me.
But Rich, you got to remember, Lawyer's a top 100 guy, so he recruited. I mean, if he's on Duke's roster, we have him on stock falling, right? He's probably, due to go 18th in the draft. So, if he's playing for Duke. But the bottom line with Purdue is their whole team is focused around Edie. Here's the deal with the big man, a 7-footer like Edie. It is a blessing and a curse to have a big man like Edie. And what I mean by that is everything you do on the offensive side of the floor and the defensive side of the floor is about Edie. It has to be, especially on this team, because their wings and guards aren't good enough to get it done without him. So that's the deal.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I was saying, that I'm a little worried about if he's not having a fantastic game in the NCAA tournament, they might not be able to pick it up, for whatever reason. But all right, so let's talk about, but Purdue still 17-1, so they're not complaining for sure. A few teams that were, top 25, and they're all still, I believe, in the top 25, but slipping. And so we're going to talk about them, and that's UConn, Arizona, and Arkansas. UConn's lost 4 of 5, including a home defeat to St. John's on Sunday. Booney, what do you make of UConn, who I've been thinking pretty much since week 2 is a Final Four team, maybe the best team in the country. I know, most of those losses beside the St. John's loss were close and against really, really good teams, but then they lose at home to St. John's.
I'm so disappointed in UConn. I've been, as you, have had high praise for UConn. And I picked them for the Final Four, and I still have them in my Final Four. As I said last week with regard to UConn, everything has to revolve around Sonogo. And that's how it was at the beginning of the season for them until when they got to number one in the country. What's happened as of late is they have become guard-oriented. The game against St. John's might have been one of the ugliest games I've seen. They turned the ball over 20 times. Hawkins had 7 turnovers himself. He had a lot of points, but Sonogo was 6 of 9 from the floor. The game got ugly. St. John's penetrated, got to the paint, and a lot of free throws were shot. I believe they shot over 40 free throws, I want to say. And that's how they stole that game. Connecticut, no question, can get up and down the floor. But they are going to get beat that way in a tournament style. They need to limit the amount of possessions. They need to get the ball to Sonogo and play inside out. If they do that, I like them. But right now, and what we've seen in the last 4 out of 5 is my concern for UConn.
What about Sonogo on the defensive end? That's one of the things that worries me in that game. Joel Soriano for St. John's, their big man, 7-footer, and he's a big guy. He went from 19 points, 13 rebounds. And the thing about Sonogo that I don't like is he's not a shot blocker, and he's not. Soriano had very little trouble shooting right over him. And Klingon, you can't do that, but you can't play Sonogo and Klingon at the same time, really. Because Sonogo, yes, he's expanded his game, but I don't think he's the type of guy you want sitting in the corner. So are you worried about Sonogo at all on the defensive end like I am?
100%, and it goes back to my point as far as them limiting possessions and playing more in the half court. In that particular game, a lot of what St. John's did was in transition, where it got into a scramble situation, where it was 5-on-4. None of those fouls really came in a half court set where they're giving the ball to Soriano and a post up back to the basket type deal. In Sonogo's defense, Soriano's been a load all year to a lot of players. He's a hell of a big man and a load for anybody. But yeah, I agree with you, Rich. There's no question Sonogo's D isn't where it needs to be, but that's kind of what we knew about him.
Yeah, but from a hoops prospects point of view, you start to wonder, where does he fit in the NBA? Is he good enough? I don't think he's good enough to defend the paint. And then I would start to wonder if he's good enough to defend, can he play the 4? I don't know. We haven't rated, kind of like a borderline 2nd-round pick.
Who's that big man for the Clippers that played for the Clippers for a number of years? Kind of a real hustler. 3-4 years ago, it's been kind of a journeyman.
I know who you're talking about.
Montrezl Harrell.
Thank you. Yeah, that's who I see him being like.
Right, but Harrell can block shots though.
Can he?
It's pretty rough. Montrezl, he can't really defend the rim. I will also say this. Because I want to cite the Xavier game because I forgot to add this last week. I'm sorry, how do you pronounce his name?
Sonogo.
Excuse me, Sonogo. He couldn't defend the pick and roll either, and he was slow to rotations. Both when he was off the ball and defending the roller, he would get exposed almost every time, especially with the last 6 minutes of the game. So to add along to his defensive issues, he also can't defend the pick and roll. So as a prospect specifically, I don't really see a high ceiling if he doesn't fix that or understand the angles of a pick and roll and how to be an elite pick and roll defender off of that.
Yeah, he's either going to have to, he would either have to lose some weight to improve that vertical because he doesn't have a great wingspan.
No.
Or he's going to have to figure out some way to improve his foot speed, and he's going to have to be able to knock down those threes. Now, I'm specifically talking NBA. He doesn't need really to do a hell of a lot of this, for college, especially with Klingon on the team. But if you notice, when they lost to Marquette, Klingon played. I don't know if he played more minutes, but it seemed to me like he was out there for more minutes. So yeah, I mean, I think, and part of that was defensively. Klingon was just playing so well. He was blocking shots left and right, and he wasn't just blocking shots at the rim. He was blocking pull-ups. Guys would come off the pick and roll, and Klingon would be there and drop coverage. But he's so long, he could just swat it away there too. So, I think ultimately, they're not going to bench Sanogo, but I'm really wondering if Klingon isn't the better player for this team to win it all.
Klingon in that game, you're right. 8 of 11, 20 points in 21 minutes. Sanogo, 19 minutes, 5 of 7, 10 points. Again, another game, 82-76. They gave up 49 points in the second half.
Yeah.
If you want to go Klingon or Sanogo, it needs to come from inside out. And in that scenario, I think Sanogo is a better option than Klingon. I wouldn't mind seeing Hurley try to play Klingon and Sanogo together and see how that goes.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, sure. If you're playing Georgetown or something, you could experiment with it, sure. All right, so let's move on to Arizona, who's lost 2 of 3, including a shellacking at Oregon on Saturday night. We talked a little bit about Arizona kind of struggling on offense a little bit, and that kind of continued. They scored, they haven't broke 70. They haven't. The only time they've broken 70 was in the last 5 games, was their win over at Oregon State. Otherwise, they've been held under. Are we concerned about Arizona? Are we surprised they're not scoring, or is it something other than scoring? What do we think here? One thing I'm going to tell you about Arizona's losses is each one of them, they were all Pac-12 losses. So to Oregon, Washington State, and help me out here, and Utah. And each of those games, a big went crazy. The opposing big man went crazy on them, with Nafali Dante being the latest of Oregon. I personally, to me, watching that game, it felt that Oregon, everything seemed to be aligned right. For example, they tried an alley-oop, like a half-court alley-oop on the break, and Dante couldn't get to it, but it still went in the basket.
Yeah.
And it seemed like, there were a lot of shots of guys would be driving to the rim, and they would just like throw them up over their head or, behind their back or whatever, and they would go in. And, the Arizona players were just kind of like shaking their heads. It just seemed to be in the cards for Oregon to win that night. But still, these trends of them not scoring and bigs going off on them in terms of rebounding and scoring, it's rather shocking given that they have 2 bigs. But neither of them, especially Cabellas, he's not known as a rim protector. He's more of a 4. I just, again, I'm seeing here the thing that bothers me about this team is the complementary players, Krisa, Ramey, they don't, and Pella Larson, they don't seem to really be getting it done where they were earlier in the season.
Arizona does not get enough stops in order to win consistently. That's their issue. If they have a semi-off offensive game, they can be beat by anybody. that Oregon, and they don't really play hard on the defensive end either. They got out-rebounded by 10 in that game against Oregon. They didn't shoot the ball exceptionally well, and that has been their MO for most of the season. If they can score, they're going to beat a lot of teams in the country, but they have to score at a high level in order to do so. And it's extremely difficult to keep up that level of scoring in order to win consistency in the NCAA. So am I surprised at the results of Arizona? Yes and no. I think it's the best answer. I expect them to win at Oregon. I expect them to beat Washington State at home. But at the same time, if you're going to shoot 30, 35%, which should be good enough for a great team to get it done against those type of teams, they're not. They got to shoot from 3 in the 40s and from the field in the 50s. So, yeah, they have a lot of talent. They don't play an lick of D, and I have a hard time seeing them win consistently.
Yeah. Mav, you have any thoughts here?
I think before the season, the emphasis for this team was simple: outscore your opponent. I think that is what was implemented with this team and what they have followed throughout the entire season.
Exactly.
And Booney and Rich, y'all both know it doesn't work. It has never worked, and it will continue not to work. So the whole emphasis of outscoring your opponents, it was going to expire at some point. And it's expired in the second half of that Arizona State game. That's whenever it expired. It has not came back. None of these teams should have beat Arizona. They are too talented. But because of the emphasis of their play style, Booney hit it right on the nail. Any team can beat this team if they do not score the basketball at a high clip. Teams in college can score 60 points in a game and they can win because of their defense. Arizona does not play that at all. There's almost zero effort. They want to get out and run. They want to score the basketball. And when they don't do that at a high level, they will lose to lower tier schools or less talented schools in the country.
Jermaine Cuisinart, South Carolina transfer, I believe went for 27 in that game on Saturday for Oregon. And he's on a minutes restriction. He's still like not 100%.
Oh my God.
And the game that really concerned me though is, you look at the Washington State game and Mohamed Gay, the sophomore center. Now he's a top 100 guy, a prospect on our board, but he went for 24 and 14. Now he also, I think, went for 18 and 18 against UCLA. So this guy is not chump change. The reason why Gay, and he actually can shoot the ball. And one of these days, I'm hoping we'll get him on Stock Rising. But the problem is when he comes up with an 18 and 18 game against UCLA, he follows it up with a 4 and 7 game against Stanford. So that's why he's still not, high on our draft board. But the kid has talent. But they're getting beat different ways. Tubelis is not a stopper, and Krisa is not a good defender. I mean, I don't think these guys don't play with effort. I think they do, but I agree with you that the formula is outscoring. And I'm saying where I think it's falling short right now is the perimeter players. When they're not scoring, because you could pretty much count on Ballo and Tubelis getting their points pretty much, but in order for them to get that extra 10, 20, 30 points they need in the game to get over the hump over their opponent, they need Creasy to be hitting threes. They need Ramey to be hitting threes. They need Larson to be hitting threes, and that's not happening. But I still think they're the second best team in the Pac-12, but now I'm clearly on board with UCLA, that UCLA is the better team. I thought it was going to be interesting, and they will meet this week, which we'll talk about in our predictions. So the last struggling team, and I don't think this one's much of a mystery, is Arkansas. They've lost 4 of their last 5, including a 13-point defeat at Vanderbilt, who's not very good. Vanderbilt's not horrible, but they're not very good, and Arkansas should not be losing to Vanderbilt. But in my opinion, they are missing 2 of their 4 best players. If you look at all the good teams in this country, they all have 4 good players. 4 good players, at least. And then some supporting roles. Some teams even have 5 good players. But Arkansas had 4 really, really good players. And they're down to 2 of them. And we said at the top of the season and in preseason, this team doesn't really have much size. This team doesn't really have much rim protection. And we also, without Nick Smith and without Brazil, the 2 guys who are out, they don't have much shooting.
100% agree.
You got anything to add, or did I just hit the nail on the head?
No, you did, but you look at that Vanderbilt game. I saw that Vanderbilt game, and Vanderbilt shot over 50% from the floor. They're still athletic as hell. They're one of the most athletic teams in the country, with Ricky Council and Anthony Black and what they have.
Debo Davis.
They give up 97 points to a subpar Vanderbilt Commodore team.
Who though has a 7-footer, and they don't have an answer for that 7-footer.
That's true, but this is still a game that Arkansas needs to get. Without Smith, without Brazil, they got to get this game. And, you're going to allow that type of shooting, tells me a different type of issue. And Arkansas didn't shoot the ball bad that game. So I'm with you. I don't know what to make of Arkansas. For a while there, mid-season, I would say about 8 games this season, I had this team going to the Final Four.
Yeah.
Now I don't even know what to make of them. So,
but I personally think if Nick Smith, was playing, they'd still be a top 25 team.
They would,
and maybe even a top 10 team. If Brazil and Nick Smith were playing, they would be a Final Four team. But we know Brazil's not coming back. And the last I heard, maybe you heard more. I didn't see the Vanderbilt game, but the last I heard, the game before, they said that Nick Smith was going to see a knee specialist. Now, this could be one of those things where a guy already knows he's going to be a lottery pick, and he's just, drag it, just kind of hanging on, and it won't take any chances to hurt his draft stock.
I think you're right, Rich.
But I'll tell you what, I've seen it over and over again. When guys do this shit, their draft stock drops. Now, I'm not saying he's not legitimately hurt. I'm saying, you remember Jalen Johnson, like when he quit midseason, he went from being like a surefire lottery pick on most people's board, to dropping. It happens over and over. I could, if I gave it a lot of thought, I could name player after player. We've already dropped Nick Smith on our drop board from number 3 down to, I believe, 6. So, yeah. But still, it's not like he's fallen off. He's not going to fall. I doubt we drop him out of the lottery, but it would be nice to see him play, certainly for Arkansas and just for college fans in general. What are your takeaways from, by the way, first of all, kudos to Booney. He called one of the biggest upsets of the season. No, seriously. And you almost got another with BYU and Gonzaga.
If games were 38 minutes long, I'd be like 17-3.
If games were 38 minutes long, Notre Dame would be undefeated. But anyway, what were your takeaways from that Kentucky's win? I'll tell you mine, and I'll leave you some room to talk this time. I just thought that basketball game was far more physical than the college national championship football game.
Mav's not going to like this. Tennessee, to me, is like your local neighborhood bully.
Yeah, they are.
So, hey, I'm going to go over to South Carolina and beat them by 40. Hey, Vanderbilt, come on, Tennessee, we'll beat you by 30. But all of a sudden, Big bad Kentucky comes walking in, and they can't do a thing. Get out rebounded by about 12 and just bullied. And I've never been sold on Tennessee. I don't think they're good. I don't like them. I've said at the beginning of the year, they showed what they were all about at Arizona. Mav, I know you got them going to the Final Four. I mean,
I do too. But Mav.
For me, they're your first four out. But no, obviously they're going to get there. But I don't see much in this Tennessee team. So, not a big fan. And I think it was more just Tennessee's overrated versus Kentucky did something.
I have a different take, but maybe Mav will have the same take as I do.
No, I can't stand Tennessee. I have not been a fan of Tennessee until last week because I believed their defense. I still do believe that their defense is good enough to make the Final Four. I don't think the defense is a question. I can't stand them watching offense. It's horrible. It makes me want to turn off the game and not watch any more college basketball. Okay. I'm gonna hold on. I just want to go through this. In Kentucky, Ziegler 3 for 12, Vescovi 4 for 13, Josiah James 2 for 8. Okay, there was almost no spacing, and then their defense wasn't very good either because they gave up so many free throws to Kentucky. So it's.
Oh well, that's because they were literally holding on to Kentucky's players. I mean, they had a hold of them. Their jerseys were being ripped off their bodies.
They couldn't stop him from getting into the paint, and it's not like Kentucky shot well either. I mean, they didn't shoot well. They didn't shoot well either. They barely shot. I think like two guys shot more than like 4 threes on Kentucky. It's not like they were like a high volume shooting team. They were getting to the paint relentlessly.
Well, in CJ Frederick and Antonio Reeves, the two shooting guards on that team had decent games, not great games, but decent games.
Inefficient.
Oh, they were, but they were far more efficient than Tennessee. Tennessee went three of 21 for 3. They went 3 of 21 for 3, and they missed I don't know how many bunnies. Now, I will say about the bunnies, Zakai Siegler missed it. No, wait a second. He's hurt. That's what it has to be. The guy is very athletic. He can jump, but he blew at least 2 wide open layups.
Yeah.
And it's got to be, he's got some kind of back injury going on, and that had to be what's going on there because that guy wouldn't miss 2 or 3 gimme layups like that.
But I'm not going to sit here and be like, "Oh, I'm going to panic." Because I still think that Tennessee has a great chance to get to that Final Four. What we were talking about with Arizona, it's the complete opposite with Tennessee. Right. And I trust that so much more than any sort of high volume relying on offense. That's my take on it.
Yeah.
But it was still horrible to watch that Tennessee offense.
But you have to admit that Tennessee can lose to anyone and they have plenty of nights. But they have plenty of nights when the shots don't go down. Yeah. And in those games they struggle to break 60. Mm-hmm. And if you struggle to break 60, you can lose a game,
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. So we got a couple more things. Actually, one more item, and then I'm going to make a couple of announcements about players that are healthy. But quickly, Clemson is undefeated in the ACC and has a 2-game lead. Is this going to last? Are they the New York Knicks?
I mean, how can't you like Clemson? I mean, coming into the year, most individuals and outlets had Clemson at finishing 10th in the ACC. When you look at their team, 6'8" senior forward Hunter Tyson, averaging a little bit over 15 a game, 10 rebounds a game, shooting in the mid-40s from 3. I think Hunter Tyson replicates what Clemson's all about, right? Tough and grinding. True point guard and Chase Hunter is averaging close to 15 a game as well. And their best player is PJ Hall, right?
Right.
He's a back-to-the-basket type guy, and now he's actually instituted more of a jumper, shooting over 40% from 3, 6'10" junior. Clemson want to slow down tempo. What's great about their offense is they can post up multiple guys, right? You can post up Hall. You can post up Tyson. You can post up
and you can go high-low with those guys.
100%. They're physical. They play extremely good defense. Very gritty, very tough. My only question about Clemson is, can they find enough scoring
Right.
versus the elite teams?
I agree. I think when they beat Duke on Saturday, I think the play that symbolizes Clemson to me was when Brevin, it was very, late in the game, still a tight game. I think maybe Clemson was up by 2. Brevin Galloway drives by Jerick Whitehead, I think, for an and one.
Yes.
And Jerick Whitehead is a good defender. And it wasn't like he got blown away. But Galloway did get him on his hip. And, and I started thinking about that. I was like, wow, I'm really surprised that, that he got by Whitehead. And then I started thinking, wait a second. Jerick Whitehead is barely 19 years old, and Brevin Galloway's 25 years old. And that's Clemson for you, that's why, Jerick Whitehead is probably, going to be 10 times the player, Brevin Galloway will ever be. But right now there's almost a 7 years age difference. And that's why they can make plays.
Yeah.
Like that.
And that's what things like Nil has done for college hoops is this, you have those older players now in, you have your 5th-year seniors. So it's pretty cool.
Right. All right. So I got a couple of good announcements. The positive news of players that are getting back into the groove and just adding how much more interest. And that's starting with Texas Tech, Fadar's Amac, the big power forward, a double machine from Utah Valley, who had yet to play for Texas Tech, made his debut this weekend for Texas Tech. And that should, boost that team, especially in the front court. But he could also shoot it a little bit. Baba Miller, the much highly regarded prospect. Some people have him, I don't know, maybe a lot of people have him rated as a first-round pick. I do not. And there's a lot of different opinions, by the way, on Baba Miller. But he made his debut, I believe, on Wednesday or Thursday last week. He played okay. He played 17 minutes, but then he couldn't play this weekend because he has tonsillitis. A lot of people sick out there. A lot of guys missing games because of illness. But Bubba Miller, we should see him playing regularly for Florida State. And so he's definitely a player you want to catch if you're interested in the NBA draft. And lastly, Vince, and I hope I don't screw up Vince's name, but I think it's Awuchukwu. Anyway, he's USC. He's a center. He was a top 25 prospect who in September collapsed, very similarly to what happened in the Buffalo football game. He collapsed with a heart issue, had to be revived on the court during practice. He actually had some kind of heart surgery. I do not know the details in September after collapsing. And God, after hearing that story, you think we would not see him on the court at least for this year, especially when we know what happened with Keontae Johnson. Took him over 2 years to get on the court. But actually, Vince made his debut. I'm not exactly sure, but anyway, he's back in action. They're playing very limited minutes, being very careful with him. But he is a 5-star guy and will just help USC that much more. So another guy to watch, probably won't be in this year's draft, might not even be in next year's draft, but definitely will be in the NBA draft. And I suspect he will be drafted at some point. Next, we'll move on to our stock report. And we're going to start off with a guy who's got a brother who's a rookie in the NBA. That's Chris Murray. And we talked about Chris once before on the show. And the interesting thing about when we talked about Chris was he was doing fantastic, but he was also headed to the Duke game. And Drew pointed out is I really want to see what he does against Duke and Duke's size and so forth. And we do know one thing we can say about Duke this year is they do play pretty good defense. And and Keegan had a nightmare of a game up in I believe that was played in Madison Square Garden.
Yep.
And but since then he's been on a tear. So what would you Mav, you have thoughts about Chris Murray?
You said Keegan and talk about him in the Duke game.
Oh, okay. Actually, what I'll do is I'll run over Chris's stats just to say what he's done since that Duke game. Let's see, going back, he scored 17 against Nebraska, 32 against Penn State, 30 against Indiana, 17 against Rutgers, which is a good defensive team, 27 against Michigan, and most recently 19 against Iowa. So he's getting it done. So what are your thoughts, Mooney?
I love Chris Murray. You know who he reminds me of? And it just came to me when I saw the name. It's like a poor man's Scottie Pippen. He's 6'8", he's long, he can shoot it. He operates great in space. Yeah, that Duke game, he did struggle. He is not a guy that's gonna really flourish in a half-court setting, and that's what that game was for the most part in Madison Square Garden. He's shooting the ball great right now. Iowa plays a style, too, that is more formidable and comparable to the NBA. It's wide open. They like to get shots up. On top of that...
And they don't play defense, which is
they
like
don't play defense, just like the NBA as well. I like Chris Murray. What's really surprised me about Chris Murray is how well he's shooting. And he's actually scoring with his back to the basket as well. He's scoring in transition. What I have seen over the last several games, as you've mentioned, and how he's looked, is a prototype NBA wing.
Yeah, a big wing. I obviously, if I'm going to make a comparison, I'm going to compare him to his brother. He's just, the interesting thing is, even though they're pretty much identical twins, Chris is left-handed. But I'm going to let Maverick talk before I put in my final thoughts about Chris Murray.
What's impressed me so much about him is just the overall IQ on both ends of the floor. He understands angles so well. It seems like he always makes the right cuts. He knows where to go to in different spots on the floor. I think it's a great point that Iowa does play a little bit more of an NBA style. And he has free reign to shoot the three ball as much as he wants. And he does it really well. I don't see. So here's the thing. He's not much of a shot creator. He can post up, but really how many post-ups is he going to get at the NBA level? I don't think very much. So you really have to think about it. What is he going to do at that next level? He has the shot to have high value in the NBA. Mm-hmm. That is the biggest thing. The 3-point shot and the ability to cut. That is what teams are going to be looking for. On the defensive end, he's pretty nimble. He's pretty fast on his feet. He can defend the pick and roll. I think he can defend the paint a little bit, not really as much as a primary defender, and he can defend the perimeter as well. So he's kind of a jack of all trades type of guy who could shoot the ball really well. I see him translating to the NBA game well as a 4. And, as far as switchability comes, the ability to create and cuts and understanding angles, I'm going to say Kyle Anderson. That's who I think he reminds me a lot of. Someone
but he's a lot better shooter than Kyle Anderson.
Well, Kyle Anderson
really.
Yeah, he's improved a lot as a 3-point shooter. Not a creator at all, can post up a little bit, but he's really going to use his IQ and his cutting ability to get points on the board. Now, Kyle Anderson is a much better passer, but so that's the only really discrepancy.
Right.
But as far as everything else, the versatility, that's the type of player I see.
Right. In my mind, he's not as good as Keegan. I don't think he's as good defensively.
Agreed.
I don't think he's quite the athlete. It shows up in his transition numbers. He's not the most efficient player in transition. He doesn't really do a lot of shot creation, as you said, Maverick. And he's 19th percentile on jumpers off the dribble. So he's definitely more of a spot up guy who also, gets you points in the post and on cuts and so forth. I still think he's a very good player. I just don't think he's his brother. And for that reason, I think he's probably not going to end up in the lottery.
Yeah,
I would say mid first round.
15.
Yeah.
Mid to late first round. That's what I would say.
All right. So here's a guy who's been climbing up our draft board pretty much since day one. And for a while we had him in second round territory. Now we pretty much have him right on the fringe of the first round. And I'm wondering if maybe that's even too low, that maybe he should be maybe like in the Chris Murray range. And that's Jett Howard of Michigan. So what do you guys think? What do you like about Jett Howard? And do you think he's a potential lottery pick?
What I saw in the last 2 games, absolutely. He's been struggling most of the year, and I wouldn't say struggling, but I would say far playing to a high level. The last 2 games, it seems like he's just turned an absolute corner. He shoot first, and he has been creating his shots off the dribble, off the pass, and playing to an all-time high as far as confidence. It's to the point, if he's open, you could count it. Now he's trying to create room off the dribble to get off that shot, but at the same time has enough to go to the rack and finish there. He's been quite impressive the last 2 games. Whether if that stays somewhat consistent over the rest of the year, yeah, he's going to be a top 15 pick the way he's shooting the ball.
Right. What are your thoughts on Jett, Mav?
He definitely has a pretty solid chance right now to be a lottery pick. He is so young, and it seems like the past 2 weeks, he's really impressed me with his on-ball skills. We knew that he was a shooter before, but I've seen more and more pick and roll and more good decisions, specifically scoring-wise. Mid-range jumpers, getting into the paint. He's a really nice right to left crossover. And it seems like he can get by a lot of people with that move. That's an NBA move. Mm-hmm. And I think right now I can comfortably say he can be an NBA scorer. And that's big. I would say late lottery right now is where I could see him ending up at. I definitely think he deserves to be in that Chris Murray territory. I honestly think he's a little bit better of a prospect.
Yeah, because he's about 3 years younger.
Yeah, and just the scoring output and the efficiency is just all there for him. I think his dad also probably helps a little bit with that too. He kind of has like a little bit of a cheat sheet. So it's just different. I really like his game. And his scoring ability, it could be through the roof time March Madness comes and the draft comes.
Right. You know what? I mean, I don't think he's an elite athlete. I think he's a solid athlete. I don't know if you guys would agree with me. Especially, I'm a little concerned about his vertical, but he relies a lot on picks. Whether it's working off the ball or even with the ball, as you said, they use him a lot in the pick and roll. But what I love about him is for a freshman to be playing almost 32 minutes per game, and he averages 1 turnover per game. And if you want to round up, 3 assists per game. 1 turnover for a game for a guy who holds the ball a lot.
Yeah,
and he's got a really smooth game, makes very good decisions with the ball, and shooting off the dribble. 94th percentile with jumpers off the dribble. That's can't beat that. In isolation, Now, he doesn't do it a lot, but right now he's at the 98th percentile. Like I said, I don't know if he can do that at the NBA level. I don't think he's going to be an ISO player. Maybe he will, though. He's only 19. Who knows? How his body fills out. But yeah, there's not much to say. I haven't really studied him a lot on defense, and that was something that many, many people criticized him for coming out of high school. So that's going to be the next step of my scouting process, is to start watching him more on the other end of the court. But offensively, yeah, he's got it. All right. So moving on to our next guy, and that's Bryce Hopkins, who Booney really, really likes. I was actually watching some clips of Bryce this morning, and what came to my mind? Now, this is just a very, very loose comparison. But I saw a little Charles Barkley there. I don't think he's nearly as athletic as Charles, but he's got a pretty fast step for a big, muscular wing, who can also probably play the floor and does play the floor at the college level. He'll probably do so at the pro level. So, Moody, you really like Bryce Hopkins?
6'6", 220. He's had games earlier this year against Marquette where he went for, I believe, 32 and 20. UConn in a win, he went for 27 and 5. Yeah, I like Bryce Hopkins a lot, and that's a great analogy with regard to Charles Barkley, an unathletic Charles Barkley. I think is the best way to put it. But he can shoot it too, Hopkins.
Yeah,
he has a big explosive first step. He is strong. He's a beast.
Yeah.
Defensively, I don't know. But on the offensive floor, he is tough. I'm a big Bryce Hopkins guy. And like I said, if Providence can make a run in that tournament, they're going to be talking about him because he's the type of guy that puts up the big numbers. And he looks dominant when he does it.
Yep. He struggles when he tries to shoot off the dribble. It's the one that'd be probably the next piece of his development on the offensive end. Also, he can be sloppy with the ball, and he's a tad turnover prone. But shooting split wise, I mean, he's is he 6'6"? By the way, I thought he was 6. Yeah, he looks bigger. He looks bigger.
I was surprised at that too, Rich.
He looks bigger than 6'6", and he looks bigger than 220. I mean, the guy's muscular, and he's got big lower body. If you look at his legs, they're huge. But anyway, his shooting splits right now averages 16 points a game for Providence, and shooting 48% from the floor, 39% from deep, and 74% from the free throw line, and getting to the free throw line 5 times a game. Very efficient around the rim. And like I said, his first step is, he doesn't look fast, but boy, he can get by you in a hurry. But yeah. Also 9 rebounds per game. For if he's 6'6", 220, that's a very Barkley-like number.
It is.
So what are your thoughts, Mav?
Well, I know y'all are going to disagree with me on this one, but you're going to have to hear me out. When I look at a wing in college or overseas or in the G League, my dream is how versatile are you as a wing? Because I've seen too many times in the playoffs, specifically the playoffs, not regular season, playoffs, wings will kind of switch over to the 5 because they can rebound, defend the rim well, they can defend the perimeter, space out the floor for their shot creators. Bryce Hopkins, I think, has the potential to do that. He is big enough. He has the rebounding tendencies. He can't defend the rim as well as I would like, but as someone who is able to grab a rebound, out-muscle the other guys, because it's not like he's out-muscling guys that are smaller. No, he's out-muscling guys that are much bigger than him because he's 6'6", grabbing almost 10 rebounds a game. That in itself is very noticeable to me as someone who is, I think every team is looking for that kind of wing who, if they go small, if the other team goes small, they need to be able to match it. Bryce Hopkins could be someone to do that. He also can be someone to grab a rebound and take it down the court himself. He's not a good enough passer yet. I think he kind of takes things. I think he rushes a lot of things, and I think that's where his handle kind of comes into a play. Sometimes it's a little loose, but he has a really nice right-handed, quick first step to the rim, and he gets to the line a lot. He gets to the line 6.7 times a game. That right there.
I had 5 times a game. But it doesn't matter.
Okay. He gets to the line a lot. He gets to the line a lot. He gets to the line 5 to 6.7. That's a pretty small difference. It's a lot. I think he has a lot of potential, but he needs to polish up his offensive game and really just be smarter on the defensive end for him to get to that status.
Right. The next guy is another Big East guy, and that's Sully Boom. And Sully Boom has been playing college basketball since 2017. But he's still 23 years old. So he's actually going to be 24 in a few days. But we talked about Sully earlier in the season when he broke into our top 100. Now he's moved up another notch, still on that borderline second round territory. Not no lock for the second round, but I'll just give you why I like the guy. First of all, he's the Big East leading scorer, 17.6 points per game, shooting 50% from the field, 44% from deep, 88% from the line, and he's getting to the line 6 times a game. 4.4 rebounds, 4.9 assists, which is more than double his career average at lesser schools, San Francisco and UTEP. So I'd say the one, and by the way, his assist turnover ratio for a guy who has never been a full-time point guard, and this is his first year, his assist turnover ratio is 2.6. Excellent. So what I'd say the downside with Sully is he's not great at the rim. He's 6'3", but he's very slight. He's built like a greyhound. And he has a lot of speed, a lot of quickness, and a lot of dribble moves. The question is, he's not great at the rim at this level, and probably would in the NBA, unless he has on some significant muscle, probably won't be very good at the NBA level. But otherwise, I really like Sully's game. What do you guys think?
Sully Boom, UTEP transfer, slashing guard that can absolutely fill it. What's great about Sully Boom is he defers a lot in that offense. He defers to Nunge. He defers to Fremantle. He defers to Kobe Jones. And everything he gets is out of the offense. He is looking to shoot the 3 first, getting it from inside out or in transition as well. But yes, he can go to the bucket when the opportunity presents itself, meaning he's going to get the ball out in 3. If there's going to be someone on him, you can give an eyebrow fake, and he's going to take the mid-range jumper. If the lane's open, he'll finish at the rack. I see Sully Boom being a 6-year, 7-year NBA journeyman backup point guard.
Yeah. I definitely think he has a chance. I think he's going to have to, work on his muscle, but I mean, given that his efficiency has either improved or not dropped off with making a huge jump in competition, this is very impressive. I mean, what Xavier needed, and we talked about this in the preseason, was somebody to step up to be a point guard, because they really didn't have any. Nobody knew it was going to be Claude, the freshman. Was it going to be Kobe Jones? Was he going to? And it turns out to be Sully Boom, and he's just done it perfectly, and he's given them a 4th weapon, and that's why they're undefeated right now and in first place in the Big East, if you ask me. Mav, what are your thoughts?
Well, y'all covered basically all of it. He didn't shoot very well against Marquette, but he really controlled the floor. I think that's one of his biggest strengths. I think he's probably a second rounder, and he could make an impact on a contender. someone who is really going to help control the floor, control the offense on a contender if the opportunity presents itself. Completely agree with Booney. I see a 6-7 year journeyman backup point guard who's able to control the game if an injury kind of comes up or they need a point guard.
Right. So next guy on our list is somebody we've never mentioned a word about, and that's Tucker DeVries. He plays at Drake, the Suns coach. He was the top 100 prospect last year. He's a sophomore now. And Drake is one of the better teams in the Valley. And right now this year, he's averaging, 18.2 points per game, 6.1 rebounds, 1.8 assists. Those are the main stats. In terms of shooting splits, 46 from the floor, 38% from deep, and 80% from the free throw line. I have my thoughts on Tucker. Would you guys like for me to? I don't know how much you guys have seen him.
Yeah. Tucker DeVries, he's one of those guys, like you said, coach's son. When you see him hit a jumper and play on the offensive the end of the floor, and when he's scoring it's about as pretty as it looks. I don't like Tucker. I like when everything he does. With that being said, everything he does is slow. From getting his shot off, footwork's good, but everything is slow, which is going to cause things to be contested in the NBA. It's going to work now at Drake. It's going to work now for what he does. It's going to work now as him being the focal point of an offense. But if you watch him, everything is just slow. And I don't see that percentage carrying over to the NBA. I see him being a real good European player playing overseas. I don't see him making it to the league.
I can't disagree. And I should clarify. Tucker is on our list because he just broke into our top 200, but he's not in our top 100, and we don't expect him. He looks like a 4-year guy, and athleticism, though, that's the one thing that really stands out as a negative, is lack of athleticism. Also, not a great ball handler. The thing, and I'll let you get a word in here, Mav, but the thing that he can do is shoot. And you rarely see this guy get anywhere near the 3-point line. I mean, he's like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 feet behind the 3-point line. I mean, the guy has got major range, but he's also only hitting 38%. But that's, to me, is about the one really good thing he does, is he shoots and he has deep range.
If you're going to shoot that well, though, you got to shoot higher than 38%, in my opinion. I see him if he's going to be anything, I see him being like a Doug McDermott, but I see Doug McDermott shooting the ball at a far higher clip than DeVries.
Yeah, I should say his size is he's a wing. He's 6'7", 210. And so he's got good size. He's a little smaller than McDermott. McDermott's probably got him by 2-3 inches. So yeah, I don't think he would ever be a play the 4, but yet he doesn't have the athleticism right now to be an NBA wing. Mav, I know we've covered a lot of bases here. You have anything to add?
I will add one thing to the whole shooting, because as far as a prospect, the only thing that I see going for him right now is the shooting, not the percentage, and not the fact that he's going to make or miss it, but it's more so the way he's doing it and the footwork that's going along with it. He's one of the few college shooters I've seen shoot consistently well as far as footwork goes off an Iverson cut. And he's one of the few shooters I've seen also come off an elevator screen and be able to shoot that at a high, quick level, considering how slow that could be, because you have to kind of go away from the basket, turn around. That's very difficult. He has good footwork. He has good fundamentals as a shooter, and he can improve on that and become quicker. But right now, completely agree with y'all. It's too slow for that to translate to the NBA level.
All righty. So the next guy we're going to talk about, and we'll let you go first, Mav, since we've been stealing all your thunder here, and that's Texas's little point guard, Marcus Carr. Now, Marcus has been playing. He also has been playing since 2017. Started at Pitt, then went to Minnesota, and that's when he really kind of shined as a scorer. He's 23 years old and will be 24 in June around the draft time. The thing I like about Marcus's game is was never, ever an efficient shooter. He was high volume with could make extremely difficult shots. Very, very good at creating his own shot. And he's really toned his game down this year at Texas. And he's far more efficient and shooting 45% from the field, 41% from deep, and 80% from the free throw line. And the other thing he's doing, and he's always been a good passer, but turnovers. He's 4.2 assists per game and only 1.5 turnovers, and that equates to an assist turnover ratio, a career high of 2.8. So that's what I like about Marcus. That's why he's reappeared. As I said, he's been on and off our draft board forever, but he's reappeared. Not quite cracked our top 100, but close. Maverick, what are your thoughts?
Dynamic scorer, great player, turning 24 turn draft when the draft comes around. There is a role for Marcus Carr in the NBA, but the ceiling's not high. The age plays a huge factor for me. It's difficult to say because guards, we've talked about this before the show, Rich. With these guards that are veterans that come into the draft, more than likely are going to be second round picks.
Marcus is probably going to be a summer league guy.
Yeah, and he might light it up in the summer league. He might get some sort of maybe a two-way contract, really try and develop over the G League. But by the time that comes around, he's going to be probably 27, 28 before he gets another opportunity to full time. It's tough to say.
Yeah.
It's great player. I'm not knocking that at all. Please don't think I'm knocking that. I just don't see how it's going to go from that into the NBA, especially if he's going to be picked up by a team that's,
Well, here's I get what you're saying, but here's my counter to the argument. Look at what Sully Boom has done. Sully Boom has taken his game to a new level. Okay. He rose to the challenge, higher competition, and he's playing as good, if not better than ever. So, yes, long shot for Marcus Carr, sure, but he's still one of the best guards in the country. And
100%.
And he's still going to end up playing in the summer league. And so, yeah, but probably not good enough to be a second round pick because of his age. If he was putting up these numbers, and he was 19 or 20, we'd be talking about him as a second round pick. But you know what? He's going to be 24 soon.
Yep. That is the biggest issue with me. I don't want anyone to think that I'm knocking his play. I'm just saying that at the NBA, it's going to be very tough.
All right. We're not going to talk about the next guy too much because we talked about him earlier in this show and we talked about him once before. And that's PJ Hall of Clemson. And I'm going to just ask Booney, quickly, basically what we have is a young 20-year-old player, 6'10", who can shoot it. Not much, he's basically, shooting unguarded jumpers but he's really efficient around the rim, tough player, really competes, had a lot of injury trouble over the last 15 months, but now looks completely healthy and was phenomenal against Duke. Have anything to add about PJ?
I think PJ has the potential to be a real good pick and pop player in the NBA, be a backup big man for a team, give somebody 12 to 15 minutes. He can shoot it a little bit, he can finish around the rim. That's about the high side on him, but his
Here's the
rotation,
thing,
his stroke's good.
He's is he a sophomore or a junior? Junior, but he's still only 20 years
20
old.
years old, yeah.
Yeah, so he could stay for 2 more years if he wants.
Absolutely.
So, he might be like, ACC Player of the Year next year.
I can see it.
Yeah, so we haven't yet seen. In fact, I forget who was doing the game against Duke, but they said if PJ Hall was healthy, he'd probably be, win healthy. He said PJ Hall is one of the top 5 players in the ACC. I don't know if I would go that far right now, but I definitely could see him being Player of the Year next year.
Well, CBS at the beginning of the season, preseason, there was a lot of outlets that had TJ Hall around like number 46.
Wow. We had him in the 80s or 90s, but he didn't play early in the season. And then when he came back, he was on a minutes restriction and he wasn't looking so hot. He wasn't looking bad, but he wasn't looking good. But then, against Duke, I was like, all right, he's back. He's actually still wearing a big knee sleeve, but he dislocated his left kneecap.
Yeah.
But anyway, he looks completely healthy now. And liking what I'm seeing, I don't think he comes out this year, but definitely a guy to keep an eye on. All right, last guy, and we'll wrap up Stock Rising, is Jordan Walker. And Jordan Walker, actually, we have a listener question about Jordan Walker. Well, actually, a listener mentions him in a question. But Jordan Walker is a dynamic little guard, 6 foot tall at best. But he can dish it and he can shoot it. Does struggle at the rim because of his size, but I'll just give you his numbers right now. He's one of the leading 3-point shooters in the country. He's making 4.4 threes per game and shooting 44% on high volume, almost 11 attempts per game, averaging 17.9 points per game for UAB. Also dishing out 4.3 assists per game. Booney, you wanted to see Jordan Walker on the list. What are your thoughts?
Jordan Walker's interesting. He's a lot of fun to watch.
Oh, yeah.
But we talked a little bit last week about Pete Nance and him playing at Northwestern and being the focal part of an offense. When you're going to be shooting the ball 15, 16, 17 times, a lot easier to score versus opportunity scoring. With that being said, I see Jelly, as they call him, Jordan Jelly Walker, being the same type of deal as, not the same type of player, but the same type of hype as a Jimmy Fredette. Comes out, looks great, the long range threes, gets everyone excited, and has a hell of a career overseas. That's what I see Walker being like.
All righty. So you predict he will learn how to speak Chinese. Maverick, you have any thoughts on Jordan Walker? And I agree with Booney. He is definitely one of the most fun players in the country to watch play.
And I agree with that too. I don't see a consistent NBA player as fun as he is to watch. Doesn't finish around the rim well enough. It's almost like if y'all remember this guy, Pierre Jackson, someone who could just light it up. I mean, he would drop 50 in the G League. Yep, at Baylor. He would drop 50 in the G League. He would come over in the NBA sometimes if they needed some scoring, but he was a consistent G League player and overseas player who would just score at will. That's the type of player I see. I don't see a consistent NBA player, though. Right.
So that wraps up Stock Rising, and we'll move on to Stock Falling. So this is the bad part of the show where we talk about players who aren't meeting expectations. And we're going to start off with Derek Lively of Duke. He's been on this list once before when we had him near the top. I'd say maybe a top 5, top 6, top 7 player initially when we started the season. Then we dropped him kind of down toward the end of the lottery or maybe just out of the lottery. And now I predict with the new rankings that will come out tomorrow, I think he's going to be mid to late 20s. So what do you think? What do you think about that, Booney? What do you think about Lively dropping down to the end of the first round?
I mean, if I was an NBA GM, and good thing I'm probably not, I maybe take a shot on him as the last pick of the draft. I don't know what he's done. I think there's a certain perspective when you're looking at NBA players, and I firmly believe in a player has to prove themselves as a player to a point. Derek Lively reminds me, not even as good as not even close to as good as a James Wiseman. And same thing with James Wiseman. James Wiseman came out long, 7-footer, has all the tools, and has showed, sparks of what he can do, but really going into the draft hasn't shown anything. Lively, his whole thing has been based on potential, but he hasn't come close to that yet and has been given minutes. So, he's at any other program, we're not even talking about him.
Good point. Mav, are we being too hard on Lively if we drop him down to the end of the first round?
No, you're not. And I kind of agree with Booney. Listen, a late pick, I would probably take a chance if it's maybe a second rounder, but even then I would hesitate, and that's saying something.
Well, what about like a Peyton Watson who went 30th overall and he did nothing last year?
Oh, you wouldn't catch me making that pick. I can promise you that.
No, but I'm saying Lively certainly has probably done more. He's done more already than Peyton Watson has. So, I can't really see him slipping out of the first round. If Peyton Watson can get drafted at 30, Lively's going to get drafted at least at 30.
Probably. Yeah, you're probably right. But I still stand by, I don't think I would use a first rounder on him. I don't think I would. I think that there's better consistent players, even if their ceilings are lower than him. Because let's just be honest, his ceiling is still very high. He has the talent. You're just taking a huge risk. And the Wiseman thing was a great point. The Shaedon Sharpe situation, that's another thing that we have to take into account. I would say a lot of these guys that we're just basing this potential on, a lot of them don't pan out. But you have to take the chance because this is how high the ceiling is.
Right. So on the season, these are all half-court numbers. He's taken 4 jumpers, has not made 1. The rest of his shots have either been at the rim or in the post. And the post shots, 4 hook shots. Don't know the percentage on them, but the other 44 shots were either layups or putbacks or dunks. And he's not like, even for that, he's at the 78th percentile for a 7'1" guy. You would think, at least for that, for putbacks and stuff like that, he'd be like the 90th percentile. He's doing pretty well as a roll man, unlimited attempts. 90th percentile. These, by the way, when we say percentile, we're talking about points per possession. But on putbacks, where he's battling people like Oscar Tshiebwe for rebounds, only 25% percentile for points per possession on putbacks. So there's another thing. The guy doesn't have much muscle. He's easily pushed around. So right now he's a good rim runner. And good shot blocker. And that's what you get right now. All right, next guy is another 5-star freshman. He too has only taken 4 jumpers this season, but he did make 2 of them, so he's at 50%. Dillon Mitchell, somebody I'm not ready to completely give up on because Dillon Mitchell plays good defense. Dillon Mitchell might be the best athlete in this draft. He's a small forward, or let's just call him a forward for Texas. And a lot of his numbers are decent. And the thing, in some ways, who's the kid from Texas who was drafted by Portland? Greg Brown. In a lot of ways, he has that, Greg Brown had athleticism out the yin yang, and was a decent sized forward. But the difference is Dylan Mitchell has fit in nicely with Texas. He hasn't made any problems. He doesn't take bad shots. A lot of the things that Greg Brown did, Greg Brown had a lot of mental lapses at Texas, where Dylan Mitchell, I'm not seeing that. I'm seeing a kid who's really into the game. It's not there yet. His athleticism is far more advanced than his game. But for example, he's shooting 63% from the field, which is great, but he's only shooting 48% from the foul line. So I just think Dylan Mitchell has a ways to go. I think he's the type of guy who will probably most likely come out this year and be a first-round pick. But you know what? But I don't know if he's going to make the lottery. But you know what? If he stayed another year, I bet you he could potentially be a top 5 pick. You guys got thoughts on Dylan Mitchell?
Yeah, a couple things on Dylan Mitchell. At a certain point, some of these guys that are touted to be drafted so high have to show something. I saw Dylan Mitchell in mid-December against Rice, and I'm just looking at some old notes I wrote on him, and it basically says, Dylan Mitchell, highly touted freshman, number 4 for the freshman as far as the top 100, long, versatile, but has a ways to go. I think he may be something. When you're talking about the foul shooting, a good friend of mine is an NBA assistant right now, and he made a great comparison. He said, remember when Okafor from Duke got drafted, and Towns, I believe, was 2? He said the big thing you look at, if you don't know if a player is going to be a perimeter shooter or a fit for the NBA, look at their free throw shooting. He said right away they knew Okafor was going to be so much of a worse pro than Towns simply on what they shot from the foul line in college. And that may be an issue as far as what they're looking at right now with Mitchell. I don't know. He hasn't shown anything yet. He has potential. You're right. Very athletic. If he's this athletic, this good, there needs to be better numbers behind him.
Well, what I'm saying is, though, he is already contributing. I mean, he is playing regular minutes and playing good defense, for Texas. So in that respect, you can count on him on at least on one end of the floor. And with Marcus Carr and all the other guys, Timmy Allen, you don't need him right now to be, do anything other than, run the floor, score in transition, putbacks, cuts, things of that nature. And that's what he's doing. He's doing what he's being asked to do, and you can't fault him for that.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you in that sense. But at the same time, with that being said, we got him drafted. We got him. He's pretty high on the board for most people.
Right. Right. We had him. We started the season. We had him top 10. And now I still think on our current board that's up there, I think he's still late lottery. But, we're going to drop him down another notch.
I probably got him in the 20s.
Yeah, and that's probably where we're going to put him, tomorrow. So, yeah, that's, but what I'm suggesting, if Dylan Mitchell's out there listening, stick around one more year. You'll be more part of the offense. You'll be able to display more. You'll be able to work on your shot in the offseason, and you might be a top 5 pick with that athleticism.
I'm with you.
All right. So another guy who's kind of been up and down on our draft board, and I watched Emoni Bates, Eastern Michigan, play against Akron. I believe it was on Friday night. Oh my God, what a disaster! Worst display of basketball I have seen all year. Not just from Bates. It was the whole
Eastern
team.
Michigan's that's hard to watch. No.
Yeah, and what? I don't know their coach's name. I would know it if I saw it. I would.
Yeah.
But what really made me angry about that game was, his team was not there. They were not there mentally. They were not playing well. They were making mistakes. They were arguing with each other.
Yeah.
So what's this coach do? He gets himself 2 technicals and gets thrown out of the game. Now, to me, he didn't want to be a part of it, and he wanted to kind of deflect the reason. Now, by the way, at the time they were already losing by 20-some points, so it'd be hard to blame it on the refs at that point. But to me, he quit on that team, and for a team that showed no discipline. What does the coach do? He shows no discipline. And he didn't gut it out. He wouldn't gut it out. And yet he expected his players to ride that one out. I got to look up the guy's name. Mark it down. Eastern Michigan's coach should be fired. And if he has a problem with that, he could call me or write me. But anyway, Emoni Bates, we had him late teens for a while. And then we dropped him down some because his efficiency just wasn't there. And, I just watched the guy, and he doesn't play a lot of defense. He's turnover prone. He's not efficient. And for somebody who was supposed to be, the number one prospect in his draft class or his recruiting class, to be playing in the MAC, I mean, he should be lighting it up. He should be efficient, and he's not. And I'll just give you an example. Even though he's scoring almost 20 points per game, only 42% from the floor, only 34% from deep, 1.1 assists per game, and 2.4 turnovers per game, and he doesn't play good defense. The whole team doesn't play good defense. So if I said it from the start, it was a mistake for him to go there. He should go somewhere where he can be coached well and not necessarily be the guy, maybe be one of two or one of three, go to a school like Xavier or something like that, where we're surrounded with a decent team and have a good coach. He went somewhere where he'd have the ball in his hands all the time. He got what he wanted, and he's not coming through in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you as far as watching Eastern Michigan play is extremely, extremely difficult. I saw him play against South Carolina, and he had a huge game. 36 points, 17. I mean, I think something like 14 of 22 from the floor. He can shoot it.
Yeah, he can. Yeah, he can. And he can create a shot. He's excellent at creating a shot.
Good size. But you got to really look at he has a character issue as well.
Right.
And you got to really look deep at that character. If a player is that good and that good of a scorer, you look at Eastern Michigan's record.
Which is like 3-11 or something now?
Worse than that. It's really, really bad. So I don't know what to make of Emoni Bates. I'd take a shot on him second round.
Right.
I think he's a good enough shooter.
And that's where I'm saying we're gonna have him in early second round territory.
Yeah.
What do you think, Mav? You're shaking your head.
I'm sorry. I've been out on Emoni ever since I came onto the Hoops Prospects team. I've been it's been over for me. I'm done with it. And the whole, I said whenever he was going to play South Carolina, I knew that he'd have a big game because it was one of the last times he'd be on national television.
Yeah. It's a good point.
And he has the shot creation of a professional player. That's what I said.
Yep.
Stand by it. He has nothing else. He doesn't have passing. He doesn't have pick and roll creation. He doesn't have defense. He doesn't really have finishing, hardly. He can create a shot from the outside in the perimeter. That's why I gave him the Jordan Clarkson comparison. Now, I wouldn't take a chance on him at all in the draft. I think he'll probably get signed to a summer league team, and he'll probably struggle because the ball is not in his hands the entire time. Sort of like the Pete Nance situation. I think it's going to be similar with him. He's going to be inefficient in the summer league, and he'll probably be a G League player or overseas. That's what I see.
You don't think he's going to be drafted?
With everything that we've just said, Rich, all the issues, and now the character issue with the lack of coaching, lack of discipline.
Well, the character issue is something that happened off the court where he got arrested.
Yes. Yes, and you include that now with the lack of discipline the coach is putting on, and I just can't see it. I don't know. I mean, we still have we still have 2 more months of college basketball. And it just keeps dropping. His draft stock just keeps dropping. I don't see it rising at all.
Right.
I just can't see it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's going to be hard because they're not going to make the tournament. They're not even going to make the NIT. The team's a mess. Yeah. Excuse me. I thought I got rid of the choking, but apparently it's back. All right, so we'll move on. I think we're pretty much in agreement there. Pretty much. Next guy on our list is Daniel Baccio. Now, no one is talking about Daniel as being a draft pick this year. But he was, he was in, I don't know, maybe about 120 on our draft board. And the next board, where he's going to drop pretty significantly, and he's in danger of falling off. He's a 21-year-old, 6'11", 235-pound center. Started in Arizona and now is at Texas Tech. With Baccio, I was always impressed with his footwork, his speed, the way he could run the court. And I also know from his time in Europe that he can shoot it some. He doesn't get much of an opportunity right now, but he can shoot it a little bit. So that was something I thought maybe we'd see even a little more of this year. But right now, he's kind of, and he has also been banged up this year. Keep that in mind. But the last 4 games, 2 points, 6 points, 4 points, and then against Texas, no points. And the rebounding numbers haven't been there. The one thing he still can consistently do and has been doing well all season is block shots, but it's just not good enough. Daniel, is probably going to be around for another year or two. And I don't know if there's much. And when you think about, Farda Amac coming in, that's going to probably cut into his playing time too. And, hurt his rebounding numbers because Amac is just a beast on the boards. You guys want to add anything to that?
I agree with what you're saying on it. The shooting has me somewhat curious to find out what he can be at 6'10", 6'11", but that's about it for me right now. I hope he does stick around school for the next couple of years, and we'll see. He's shown glimpses of being good, not great, excuse me. But yeah, I'm curious if he can develop a consistent jumper, and at that size, that may be something.
Right. Another guy on our board who was in the, I don't know, maybe mid, about 150 in the top 200, got off to a red hot start. That's Tulu Smith of Mississippi State. Unfortunately, as their schedule has gotten tougher, his numbers have been going down, and he too is in danger of falling out of our top 100. Now, he did have a big game over the weekend against Auburn, 20 points, 10 rebounds. And that's what we were seeing a lot of early in the season. But prior to that, he had a long run starting with a game against Drake on December 20th, where he scored less than 10 points and had less than 7 rebounds. So that was for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games in a row. And Tulu, again, when we're talking about the NBA, he's a 6'11", 245-pound and 245-pound. I think he might even be a little bigger than that. He's a big guy. But the problem there is he's not, for that size, he's not the most dominant rebounder, and he really doesn't block shots. And he doesn't shoot. And he doesn't take any threes. And he's only 59% for his career from the free throw line. So you begin to wonder, Mississippi State was winning games, and he was putting up 20 and 10, seemingly on a regular basis. But now the schedule's gotten tough. We see no improvement. In the areas where we'd like to see improvement, and his numbers are starting to slide. Anything to add, anyone?
No, not on Tolo. I don't have anything. I don't have anything for you on Tolo.
Yeah,
You hit all my points.
Yeah, he basically, he's a below the rim player. That's another thing about him. So good college player, and a lot would have to change for him to be anything more than that. All right, last guy. You guys got to have opinion about this guy because he's a flashy player, and that's Kerr Kriisa. We talked about Kerr a little bit at the top of the show. About I thought that he has kind of not been playing well of late, not great, and that's led to Arizona's struggles. He is the current leader in the Pac-12 in assists per game of I don't know the exact number.
About 6 assists a game.
Yeah, you're right, 5.9. And only 3.1 turnovers. So that's a very high number, but it works out to be a pretty decent assist turnover ratio of 1.9. But he's only shooting 36% from deep, and that's basically his offense is shooting because he's not very good at getting to the rim, and he's not very good at finishing at the rim. So, what are you guys' thoughts? I recently saw Kerr Kriisa on somebody's top 100. We've never had Kerr that high. We've had him anywhere from the low 100s to the mid 100s. Now I think we might even drop him down one more notch.
Kerr Kriisa is who he is, right? In order for him to be a real good pro, that 36% from three needs to be around 48%. He needs to be a knockdown shooter. Yes. Off the pick and roll, getting into the roll guy, taking his opportunities, pump fake, mid-range game, but he has to be just an absolute sniper. At 36%, I mean, you could go fishing in the ocean and get an NBA player shooting 36%. So he needs to be closer to about 48, 49, this type of player in order to be drafted. Right now, he's at 36. No, he's nowhere even close to being on an NBA roster.
Yeah, because I never think he's going to be great at the rim. So yeah, you're right. I don't know if he has to be as high as you're saying, but I think he does have to be above 40. I mean the guy is very skilled, and he can be undisciplined, but he also can be incredibly dynamic in terms of making some beautiful passes, and he also could create his own shot.
Let me ask you guys. Let me ask you this question. Let me ask both of you this question: Marcus Carr, Boom, and Kriisa. Where would you rank Kriisa on those three?
Last.
Me too.
Last.
Mav, what'd you do?
Probably last. Yeah.
Okay.
He's the best passer of the three.
Yeah. He has 2 years on Carr. I think Carr's a much better player though. Yeah, I would say last as an NBA prospect.
Right. That's the thing though. With the other two guys, they got to come out this year. They're done. Kriisa can stay for I think 2 more years. So yeah, I'm not saying it's over for him because he is a very creative passer and can create his own shot. It's just he's got to hit more shots. That's all there is to it. All right, so it's now time for the fun part of the show. Gentlemen, I remain undefeated. 16-4 last week. Mav finished second at 13-7. And Booney brought up the rear at 12-8. However, in the overall standings, Booney is now at 60% for the season because that was his first week doing this. So he's second place that way. But Maverick passed Drew in overall percentage. You're now 56%. Drew's at 55. Drew better get back on the show or he's going to finish the year in last place.
Hey, it's not personal, Drew. You know I love you.
All right, so we're going to start off with games tonight, and actually there's a bunch of good ones tonight. So there we go. We got Kansas at Kansas State leading us off.
Kansas in this one. I think defense is going to be the difference. They're going to execute down the stretch, and they have enough offense to keep up with Kansas State. I see Kansas getting it done on the road.
Maverick.
We're not going to start off with a sweep the first matchup, man. I'm going to go with Kansas State in this one.
Wow. I like it.
All right. I did not like what I saw from Kansas State in their loss to TCU. I just don't think they have enough to maintain this great streak that they've been on. To me, they really only have like 3 good players. So I got to go with Kansas. All right. We got everybody's favorite team, Tennessee at Mississippi State.
The bullies get bullied by the tough interior of Mississippi State, and look for Mississippi State to hold on at home.
Wow. Wow. Very bold.
It's, I just talked bad about them too. I just did. Again. I mean, for like the 4th straight show. I'm going to pick Tennessee, and I hate it. I hate it so much.
Rocky Top's the best fight song there is, so that's one good thing they got going for them. I'm going with Tennessee as well. Mississippi State doesn't have a lot of offense. Tennessee doesn't have a lot of offense, but Tennessee's just got way better athletes. All right, now we got a really good one tonight. Texas at Iowa State.
Rich, last week you said, hey, how is Iowa State continuing to win and do what they're doing? I'm going to tell you how. Iowa State is a veteran team, senior-led. They play deliberate. They like to control tempo. They don't make mistakes. And every part of what Iowa State does is good. They have nothing phenomenal, nothing great, nothing over the top, but everything about the Cyclones is good. It's solid. I like Iowa State to get this one.
All righty. Maverick.
Man, Booney, we are just not on the same page today, we are just at ends today. I think I'm gonna go with the road team on this one. I'm gonna go with Texas.
I have to agree with Maverick. My thinking there is that I think Iowa State's been playing over their head, and Texas can match their defensive intensity, and they have a lot more offensive firepower. So I'm going to go with Texas. All right, we got Clemson, as I said, undefeated in the ACC against a good Wake Forest team, a team that you don't want to take lightly. What do we got here?
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. It's at Wake Forest as well. If it was at Clemson, I'd have Clemson. I think you're right on this one, Rich. I think Wake Forest is going to get it done at home. And Clemson just doesn't have enough firepower to compete. And we're going to see that first ding in their armor as far as not being able to have enough offensive firepower to compete in a highly contested ACC matchup.
I thought I was going out on a limb by saying Wake Forest was going to win this game, but I guess not. I guess it was just I don't know. I had Wake Forest, and I thought it was crazy because I think that Wake Forest team is very good. But yeah, going Wake Forest in this game.
I am going to ride with Clemson. I don't know I think it's going to be like come down to the final minute. You guys could very much be right, but I think Clemson just has a little too much inside. I'm going to go with PJ Hall here. By the way, another reason to like Texas in that Iowa State game is that, of course, anybody who gets on our stock falling list immediately has a huge game following us putting them on stock falling. So maybe Dylan Mitchell breaks out for 25 tonight Iowa State. All right. So we have Kentucky, who maybe found themselves or didn't find themselves, but we have Georgia, who's been surprisingly good this year, at Kentucky.
Kentucky at home. I don't know if they necessarily found themselves, but it's a good matchup for them. Georgia, not a real big perimeter shooting team, tough, physical. I got Kentucky at home.
I also have Kentucky at home, but I do it hesitantly.
We're going to make it a clean sweep and also go with Kentucky. I think Georgia's been the benefactor of a pretty easy schedule. All right, back to the Big East. And man, some of those games last week were just tremendous. These two teams went to double overtime just a couple weeks ago. We got Providence at Marquette.
Look for Marquette to return the favor to Providence and get this one at home.
Tough game. I like Marquette a lot, but for this game, I was really up in the air. I'm feeling Providence. Gut's telling me Providence.
I'm going to agree with Booney. I like Marquette at home. Again, I think it's going to be a nail biter. I'm impressed by both teams, but I think I'm impressed by Marquette just a little more. All right, we have struggling Arkansas at Missouri.
This is a tough one. I don't even know what to make of this. They just played at Arkansas.
Yeah.
I'm going to go Missouri this time. They had the lead at halftime. Looked like they were in control. Arkansas got a little bit hot. I'm going to take Missouri at home to get one over the Razorbacks.
Maverick?
I am in agreement with you. I'm going to go with the home Missouri.
It is a clean sweep. And, again, Marquette really needs Nick Smith to get back. And we don't know if that's the case. We haven't heard anything to that effect. So, it was close the first time they played, and it was at Arkansas. Now it's at Missouri. Got to go with Missouri. All right. We have Rutgers, who just broke into the top 25 at Michigan State.
Already at home, bouncing back after the devastation against Purdue.
Rutgers against Ohio State, they didn't really impress me very much. They went the first 6 minutes scoring 2 points. And Michigan State, complete opposite. Very impressed with them. Going with Michigan State at home.
Boy, oh boy. You know what, guys? This one is tough. I'm going to agree with you guys. I think, you guys said it. All right, here we got an interesting one. This is on the 19th. This is UCLA at Arizona State.
Too tough, too grindy, too defensive. Bruins on the road.
Yep. I mean, I'm with Booney. A road win for UCLA. That's what I got.
I agree completely. I know Arizona State's tough at home, but UCLA is the cream of the crop out there. Next game is a Saturday game, Miami at Duke.
It could have been Canisius at Duke, and I would have taken Canisius. Going with Miami, Florida at the Blue Devils.
Wow.
Just better.
This is a tough one for me, It's a tough one. I think I like Miami a lot. Y'all know I like Miami a lot, but I'm gonna go with Duke, and I already regret it, but I'm going with them.
I think this is I agree. This is an extremely tough one to pick. My first thought was Miami, and my second thought was Duke. It's tough. I think you just think that one day Duke's going to come out and they're just going to play up to their potential. But I tell you what, if they don't start doing it, I'm going to stop picking them. All right. So UCLA again, they're finishing that Arizona trip. So on Saturday, they play at Arizona.
Get your broom out because it's a clean sweep in the desert. Give me the Bruins.
That's a pretty tough, turnaround. The 19th, you face Arizona State, you come right back about a day later and you face Arizona. And we don't know what's going to happen with Arizona. They could score, they could not score. There's if they get hot, it could go Arizona's way.
Yeah, I think this game's going to be high scoring.
It's tough.
Really?
It's tough. But I mean, it's on ABC. I'm gonna go with UCLA.
I am too, and only because Arizona just really hasn't been playing well, and UCLA has. But certainly Arizona has the potential to turn it around, especially at home. Clean sweep there for UCLA. All right, we have TCU and their tremendous fast break offense at Kansas.
TCU had an 18-point lead at Texas, one of my upset picks. That should have been a 38-minute game, and couldn't hold on. TCU, personnel-wise, is better than Kansas. And look for them to show that in that particular game and win at Kansas.
Wow.
Well, I predicted a Kansas loss today, and going just off of that, I think they're going to be pissed. I think they have to come out against TCU and play well. And it's at home. I got Kansas.
Yeah, I'm not picking against the Jayhawks at the Fog anymore this year unless they're playing the Sixers.
Of course, I mean, you guys look at the rankings and base your picks on that. That's why.
What?
You guys look at the rankings and base your picks on that.
I'm
joking. I'm kidding with you.
I think Kansas is the better team. And
no, I hear you. No, I'm kidding.
All right, so now we got an interesting game. We got Texas Tech, who's been playing so against Kansas State.
I think Texas Tech getting the big fella back's huge for him, and he's a real difference maker. And it's going to change the complete style on how they play on the defensive end of the floor and on the offensive end of the floor. I think he's a difference maker. I think he can be dominant. And by the time they hit this game, he's going to be about 4 games in, hitting their stride. I like the Red Raiders on the road.
Yeah, you're not going to get me to buy into Texas Tech stock. Give me Kansas State at home.
I am going to go with the Red Raiders. I think they have more depth. AMAC coming back helps. I think Texas Tech has kind of been underperforming. And I also think Kansas State might just go into a little slump here. All right, so next on the list is a Texas A&M team that's been playing well of late, really well, at Kentucky.
Yeah, Texas A&M team that's been flying under the radar, undefeated in the SEC, lately dominating wins against Missouri, convincing over LSU, and dominating over South Carolina. I'm going to take Texas A&M on the road.
That's the right choice, Booney. We're going Texas A&M. The Aggies all the way.
You know what? I got to agree with you guys.
Wow.
No, I do, because I just haven't seen I have Kentucky, beating. Well, we all do. We have Kentucky beating Georgia, but I haven't seen them string together 3 good games, I think, all season. So I gotta agree. All right. So next up, we have a rematch of a game that, or no, wait. I don't know if they've met. Did they meet yet this year? NC State?
They have not.
Okay, so the first matchup of NC State at North Carolina, who may not still have Pete Nance.
Kavian, Morrell, and Joyner get it done on the road. I like the Wolfpack.
NC State's coming off a close victory over Miami.
it's hard for me to bet against North Carolina at home. I respect NC State a lot, but I'll go with North Carolina. Again, I don't want to. I don't want to do it. It's just like the Duke thing. I don't want to do it, but it seems like the right pick to make here.
Yeah, I think these teams are very evenly matched. That's why I'm going with the home team. All right, we have Michigan State, who I think we had a clean sweep on them, beating Rutgers. Now this is a Sunday game. Michigan State at Indiana.
I got the Sparties in this one at Hoosiers. And I think they're going to get it done with some guard play and Izzo calling the shots.
Give me Indiana at home, Didn't think I was going to go with them. But, yeah, we'll go with Indiana for this game.
I have to agree, and I'll tell you why. I mean, Malik Hall's out. I really had to think long and hard about Michigan State versus Rutgers. With Malik Hall, I think, we got to remember Indiana's banged up too. So we've got two banged up teams. I think they're going to be pretty evenly matched. I'm going to go with Indiana at home. All right. Now we have one of the biggies. This is a Monday night. Next Monday night, Kansas at Baylor.
Just not sold on Baylor. And I don't think they have enough to keep up with a team like Kansas. Give me the Jayhawks on the road.
Same reasons. Give me Kansas.
All righty. I am going to surprise you, gentlemen. I agree with what you say, but we already have Kansas beating Kansas. I already have Kansas beating Kansas State, beating TCU, and they lose here.
Interesting.
Yeah. Home team. All right. We have two of the best teams in the Mountain West. New Mexico is coming off victory over San Diego State, and Nevada, did they get a clean sweep over Utah State in Boise?
Nevada did.
Yeah, so Nevada, both teams are pretty hot, but Nevada's hotter.
No, they did. Yeah, they lost at San Diego State, and they beat Utah State.
Okay, all right. So who you got here? New Mexico at Nevada.
I got maybe the most underrated college basketball player in the country, 6'6" point guard, Kenan Blackshear, to get it done and staple his name among the country's best point guards.
Wow. Who you got, Matt?
Yeah, I'm gonna go Nevada at home.
I am as well. That's a clean sweep, and Mountain West is still, working itself out, and it's not really clear who the best team is there. These are two of the best. Boise's in the mix, Utah State's in the mix, and of course San Diego State's in the mix. But right now, Nevada's looking the best of the bunch. All right, last game, and this will be next Tuesday, a week from today. Kansas State at Iowa State.
I like Iowa State. Too solid for Kansas State to deal with. Iowa State's going to get it done at home.
Wow.
Well, I've picked Kansas State, this entire time. It would be a shame for that to fault now. We're going to go Kansas State on the road. If they have a bad week, it's going to be rough in this record for me. I'll tell you that right now.
And if they have a good week, it's going to be rough for me because I'm going against them in all three games. I apologize, Keontae Johnson, but I am going against K-State in every game here, taking Iowa State at home in this one. All right, so that's the end of our predictions. Let's try to get through the mailbag here. I know we've gone long today, but we let these questions ride for a while. The first question is actually directly, we've had JJ Starling on the stock falling list a few weeks ago, and Braden says, I don't agree that JJ Starling's stock is dropping. He's a pro, and he definitely can go left. I said he only goes right. But I don't understand what's wrong with the Fighting Irish. The team has made a run in the tourney last year and returned a very experienced core, but ND is barely above 500 despite an easy schedule. Well, now, since that question was wrote, now they're under 500. And a lot of people agree. I just want to look here. Starling, the last time we did a survey of draft sites, including ours, they had Starling ranked. Now, of course, this includes our ranking of him, but collectively he's ranked 49th. And I personally, I'm not saying he's not a pro, and we're not saying that. We're usually not saying that when somebody's on stock falling. This means that his stock is falling, and it could be temporary. I looked up the numbers. Starling does go left. He goes right more often, but he does go left. So yes, you're right there. My problems with Starling is has an exceptional first step. He has great dribble moves, can create his own shot. He can get to the rim, but he is just inefficient at all three levels. And he's I'm going to look up his numbers here. But the other problem I have is for a supposed combo guard, the guy is not sharing the ball. 1.4 assists per game, 1.6 turnovers per game, and his shooting splits 43%, 33% from deep, and 62% from the foul line. So, yes, you can see the athleticism. Yes, you can see him get to his spots. Yes, you can see him get to the rim, but the ball doesn't go through the hole. So that's a problem. So that's why I have Starling dropping. Any other comments from anyone?
Yeah, Brandon, I agree that JJ Starling is a pro, and the perception is that his stock is dropping. I've watched JJ Starling play quite a bit. 6'4", 200-pound combo guard, has a big explosive first step, can score on all three levels. The problem is how Notre Dame plays. They run on opportunity, but for the most part, they walk the ball up and are deliberate on offense. Notre Dame is a perimeter-oriented team, and they try to get this done in the half court. JJ Starling is getting caught up in this. Now, when you look at that and look at JJ Starling, the big game you need to look at is when Notre Dame played at Carolina, where Carolina plays a much more open style. One thing I noticed in that game, now, if you watch Notre Dame's offense, most of it's dribble handoff. North Carolina made a point to switch everything on the dribble handoff. There was 2 occasions in the second half where JJ Starling had the ball on a dribble handoff and was isolated with Bacot. You're going to be an NBA pro at 6'4", and Bacot's guarding you on the perimeter, you got to beat him. 2 occasions, he drove and got his shot blocked by Bacot. So that's the only question I have with Starling. Now, when you're talking about Notre Dame basketball and where they should be today, the one thing I disagree with you on, Braden, is they lost 3 of their top 3 scorers last year, and Blake Wesley, Goodwin, and their big fella down low, Paul Atkinson.
Goodwin's still there.
Is Goodwin still there?
Yeah. We interviewed him this year.
I apologize. Yeah, no, I'm sorry. It was Wesley and Atkinson,
right.
And
Prentice Hubb's the other guy that's missing.
Yeah. So I think that's the problem with Notre Dame is how they play, their tempo. They've lost a couple pieces. They don't have an inside presence. And Bray usually does a heck of a job with Notre Dame, but for some reason, I don't think he's playing the right tempo with the personnel he has.
Well, the other thing is they've lost a ton of games in the closing minutes because they play 6, maybe 7 deep at most. These guys run out of gas every single game. They did it against Syracuse again. They had the lead and they lost it. I mean, I don't know how many games they've lost the lead.
Yeah.
And there's got to come a point. I mean, with Charleston, you got Charleston says, all right, we don't have great players, but we're going to play 11 players because 11 players on a full tank, an average player on a full tank is better than a good player on 70% of a tank. That's their theory at Charleston. And you know what? I think Bray just has to go deeper in his bench. Yeah, okay, they're not as talented, but you can't run these guys into the ground. Notre Dame, too, he's been doing this for a while. And a lot of guys, Notre Dame guys, end up getting banged up, dinged up. The other thing, there's no motion in that Notre Dame offense.
Yeah, it's hard to watch them play.
Yeah. I mean, you watch Xavier. Well, our next question is about Xavier. Xavier, it's constant motion. There's pieces moving all over the place. A lot of backdoor cuts and stuff like that. Notre Dame, it's everyone's standing around. I'm disappointed in Mike Bray at this point. I know he's been great. I know he's got the all-time leader. He's a great guy, and he's a lot of times he's gotten a lot out of a little. But lately, it seems like he's actually underachieving with the talent that he does have.
Great.
All right. Next question is from Luke, and he says, again, remember, these questions are from a week or so ago, so they're a little outdated. Xavier has pulled out big wins against St. John, Seton Hall, Villanova, and most notably beat the undefeated UConn, who's far from undefeated now. And all of these games were decided at the final buzzer, with the Xavier's pick-and-roll offense being the main offensive emphasis in the clutch. This is the same team that let two big games go away against Duke and Gonzaga. What are your thoughts on Xavier? Well, this question answers itself. They're undefeated in the Big East, first place in the Big East. They got 4 really good players and a handful of decent role players. This team has Sweet 16 minimum.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. Perfect word to describe Xavier is sound. There's not a hole in their game. You got Boom, you got Jones, you got Fremantle, Nunge. Their point guard is just off the top of my head is Kunkel, and he's a knockdown open shooter. The only thing I have a question about with Xavier is their depth in order to make a run. So, but yeah, I like Xavier a lot, and let's see if their depth can hang on. That one loss they had to, I believe it was Duke, Nunge was something like 1 of 14, 1 of 15 from the floor, so something not likely to happen again. And Gonzaga is a heck of a team. I mean, it was surprised they lost to them.
Right. Mav, you've jumped on the Xavier bus. What do you think?
I'll keep it nice, short and sweet. I have them going to the Final Four.
Wow! Right. I forgot. I forgot.
Yep, when we did our predictions, I had them in the Final Four.
Of course, we're going to update those predictions like 5 times before we actually get to March Madness.
Well, I don't know. Xavier, it's tough for me to take them off because, I mean, even the game against Marquette, they didn't really run the pick and roll very much. They more so went with giving space to Boom and letting him work a little bit more in that mid-range and three-point area and let him create the offense. So it's now became a multitude of ways for them to score. It's tough for me to take them off.
Yeah. All right. So Anthony asks, who are your favorite players to watch? Not necessarily the best prospects, but the guys who entertain the most. I love UAB's Jordan Walker, we referenced this question earlier. And of course, Jordan Walker is one of the most exciting. There were a lot of players I like to watch. I'm just going to say the first 2 guys that come to my head. I really like, I'm a passing guy. I love great passers. And fancy passers, the Magic Johnson type of passes, the Pete Maravich types of passes. And so I like Andre Jackson of UConn, who can do a little of everything. He's not a great shooter, but he makes outstanding plays. He's a tremendous athlete, great defender. And he makes some eye-popping plays, at least one usually per game. The other guy, another guy comes foremost to mind, is Baylor Shireman, who probably the best long-distance passer in college basketball. That's for him being a former all-state quarterback. And And you can't. He makes some beautiful passes. Pete Maravich is his hero, and he tries to emulate his game. Obviously, he's not Pete Maravich, but yeah, those are two of my favorites.
For me, I love shooters. And when you're talking NCAA, first shooter comes to mind, obviously, is Brandon Miller, Alabama. Possibly, for me, it doesn't get much better than him. And then also Darius McGee from Liberty, who will absolutely pull up from anywhere, 5'7", 5'8", absolutely fearless. Love those two. So doesn't get much better for my money as Brandon Miller and Darius McGee.
You know, sometimes Booney and I think a lot alike. For me, it's got to be Brandon Miller. I'm a big NBA prospects guy, and I really look for those top prospects more so than any other collegiate players. Brandon Miller ability to shoot is one of my most favorite things to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah, gonna go with him.
Yep, Brandon Miller's great pick. He's very fun to watch. Alabama's very fun to watch. All right, last question here. Matthew wants to know, is there any way Zach Edey doesn't win Player of the Year? Are there any other players you see competing with Edey? My answer is going to be very simple. No.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, if there's anybody that can, it would be Brandon Miller. But
yeah,
like I said, I think Edey has that wrapped up. Excuse me.
Yeah, Matt.
I agree. Yeah, I think he got locked up.
All right, so hands down, Zach Edey. We all picked Drew Timme preseason. He'll get some consideration, but I think he's out of it. All right. So, folks, thank you so much. Sorry it took us a while to get to those questions. If you'd like to send us a question, please email to admin@hoopsprospects.com. We also take questions via social media on Twitter @HoopsProspects, on Instagram, The Hoops Prospects, and on Facebook. And the page there is called Hoops Pros. So you can find us there as well. So I want to thank all our listeners. People wrote in the questions. We'll be back next week with another stock report, a special guest, hopefully, most likely. We didn't really try too hard this week. It's been a busy week. And if you ever miss an episode, you can get caught up on hoopsprospects.com. See you soon, folks.
Thanks, boys. Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you, guys. Sorry to bust your butt.